Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. Welcome to Pier 57 at the Google office. This is an amazing office. It's a beautiful day in New York City. So thank you so much for choosing to be with us today. For those in person, and there's also an online version. So to everyone online who's listening, thank you. We appreciate you taking the time today. My name is Andrea McGonigle. I am the GM of Healthcare and Life Sciences, ISV. Simply put, I focus on customers who are partners in the healthcare business. And that could be plans, providers, or life science companies. I've been with Google 3 years. I worked for another cloud provider previously, but I spent originally first 13 years in pharma. So I worked for Merck for a long time and learned everything about compliance, new drug filing systems at that time. And that was my passion that I kind of carried through to technology over these past few years. So really excited about that. And I'm from the Philadelphia area. And this is usually where I make a joke about how great my teams are. But I have no room because I'm in New York City and our Sixers lost in the first round to the Knicks. But I'm going to hang my hat on the fact that 3 players are from Villanova University, which where is that? Right outside of Philadelphia. So we're gonna go with that. Well, listen, you can't win everything, right? Okay, so no surprise, health and life sciences is a priority for Google. We've been at this for 15 years. We have over $4 billion investments, 60 operating investments, and we're really working closely to help solve some of the problems of this industry and digitally transform them. And a part of that is also we have an extensive team of folks from the industry, as I mentioned myself from life sciences, but we have physicians, clinicians, and researchers in this space who are constantly working on some of the problems. Why would you choose Google Cloud for this space? First and foremost, security and compliance. Everyone from life science, the first thing that you talk about is compliance, right? And we are building the products from the ground up with that in mind. And I'm going to touch a little bit more on security, but no matter what we're talking about from a GenAI perspective, what products you're talking about, if you are not secure, that's the basis for entry, right? We have to make sure that across the board. So we are always thinking about that from a healthcare specific standpoint. We believe we have the best technology, and a great example of that is what we're doing in AI. We have been investing in this space since 2015. We are looking at this technology and what its capabilities are responsibly, ethically, and thinking about the effects long beyond some of the products that we're developing. We have the deep healthcare and life science expertise, another person as part of our organization, our Chief Health Officer, Dr. Karen DeSalvo. It's an honor to have her leading the organization across the board, and she's just one of many who help to keep us really connected to what is happening in this industry and how we can continue to help. And then finally, the best of Alphabet. When you looked at the umbrella under Alphabet, when you think about the assets that we bring to bear from a consumer perspective, whether it's Verily, Waymo, Fitbit, et cetera, think about what we can do with Google Cloud and all of those pieces to really build out world-class partnerships for healthcare. I did touch a little on security, but I really do mean this. There's not a presentation I do without talking about this. This is a strength for us at Google. If you do not have the fundamentals of security, doesn't matter what we're talking about. And I think it's very key that everyone knows this, that this is built into our core principles. Ownership. Pure and simple, your data belongs to you. Key, you control the location of your data. When you think about from a pharma perspective, whether it's regulated industries, there are rules and regulations around that, you control that. And we protect against insider access to your data, and we also work privacy practices against international standards for auditing. And this is just a sample of those security standards that we're applying to. My goals for today what does success look like at the end of the day, right? Number 1, education. GenAI is moving at the speed of light. Everything is happening almost every week. It's unprecedented. So really what we want to do is make sure everyone knows the latest and greatest from that standpoint. I want you to be inspired by the solutions that you see today. You'll see how people are approaching the problems specific to life science industry and what they're doing and some of the successes and what they've learned along the way. And then give you an appreciation for the ecosystem. We cannot do this alone. We're not going to build, Google's not going to build every single solution for life sciences. We rely heavily on our partners to work with us to build on the latest technology from Google's perspective and go that last mile to help solve some of those problems and deliver mission-critical systems to this industry. So what's that going to look like today? So we're first going to have a keynote by Riju. He is the man behind the curtain today, and he has done everything to help us get ready for today, and he's going to go over some of the trends that we're seeing from that perspective. We are going to have the queen of GenAI, Sarita, walk us through. And then we're going to go into our partner forum. We ran this session about a quarter ago, focused on the provider industry, and this went really, really well. These sessions are quick snippets around what's happening with each of these partners, who are some of the customers they're working with, what they're learning along the way, and sharing those insights with you. Very, very valuable. What we're going to do is we go through from all of these partners one-on-one. We're not going to have questions. We're going to wait to the end and do an open question and answer. And then we're finally going to wrap up with a moderated panel. And we're talking about compliance and innovation and how when they come together, they're two dichotomies. So really excited about that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my partner in crime, Riju. Oh, there he is.
Thanks. Thanks, Andrea. Welcome, everybody, especially the folks who are online listening to this presentation. Thank you for choosing to spend your afternoon with us today. We're going to try and make this really productive for you. This is indeed a very interesting time to be a life sciences organization. This is an industry that has been working with data for years, right? When we were looking at discovering drugs, when we were looking at just in general R&D processes, the way we harness data around clinical trials. But something has happened in the last 14 months or so. We're looking at this as an opportunity for this industry to really speed up innovation, to experiment with new ideas, bring new capabilities to end customers, and also do this while embracing the new role of the pharmaceutical company and the med device companies that's coming. And we'll talk about that a little bit. So let me quickly go through the agenda. I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of the macro life sciences trends we're seeing in the industry today, give you a few data points. We wouldn't dwell on that too much. We'll talk a lot about the ISV ecosystem. As Andrea said, our ability to bring great solutions to the life sciences industry is heavily dependent on what we do with our ISV partners. So we're going to dive into that a little bit, talk to you a little bit about the strategy behind it. These are not just, willy-nilly partners that we have brought on board. There is a deliberate effort behind this. And then we'll talk about the benefits of utilizing or being in an ecosystem, and then talk a little bit about what we're trying to do for the rest of the year. So there was a really interesting study by McKinsey, which talked about the global cell and genomics market literally quadrupling by 2032, going from somewhere around 18 billion right about now to 80+ billion in 2032. What that means is there is a ton of data behind this. There's a lot of data that needs to be harnessed. There is going to be a race in the market to build new therapies. And of course, it's always a race because you're trying to bring new therapies to market so you can actually bring them to the patients. Similarly, these trends are not lost on the industry, right? Gartner did a survey, and basically, if you look at 89% of the respondents, every pharmaceutical and medtech company is looking at how to refactor their data models. How do you create better command and control on the data that you have today so you can take advantage of all of the generative AI capabilities that can be actually used in R&D. Now, this has done something really interesting. This is where I want to talk a little bit about the changing role of pharmaceutical companies. This whole idea of precision medicine has been around for some time, and I think it's accelerating. There are conferences about it. It's been a very data-centric effort. Precision medicine is about personalized data from patients, from clinical trials. But also what's driving now behind that is that when you do bring these therapies to market, you are actually going to need to create personalization for the patients that are the recipients of these therapies. This starts the process of the pharmaceutical industry sort of transitioning into participating in care. And that is a massive shift. This is going to bring pharmaceutical companies closer to healthcare providers. You're going to have to deal with operational issues that typically have to do with payers, for example, like things like prior authorization, things like medical coding. Patient engagement apps. There is a big upswing for digital transformation offices in pharmaceutical companies investing in digital health platforms. How do I create these companion apps? How do I keep the patient engaged that's taking this really expensive therapy that's going to help them get better? So all of these macro trends are kind of leading to a point where every single process you're engaged in as a pharmaceutical company, starting from research and development, to clinical trials, to the way the drugs are manufactured, supply chain management, commercial operations, everything is getting kind of turned on its head. And generative AI, we believe, is the tool that is going to help accomplish filling in all the gaps that are now kind of being seen. So the very last one I want to talk about a little bit, patient engagement. If you are from a big pharma company today, you know patient engagement has changed in the last 3 to 5 years as to the expectations. What is the underlying tooling that is going to be required for you as a pharmaceutical company to be able to actually deliver better patient engagement? So let's take this from the left to the right. On the R&D side, we have already dealt with big data before, right? Like years ago, there was BLAST, if any of you remember that, right? So it's kind of moved in the direction where you need to harness data to be able to look for what the next drug candidate is you're going to be working on. But now when you start thinking of capabilities like AlphaFold, for example, that Google put out in the open domain a couple of years ago, your ability to do analysis with large data sets with the right set of tools is becoming incrementally better. How are you going to participate in that trend? This is really looking at refactoring the way R&D is done, the way decisions are made. A lot more process-centric investments is what we see in the market from customers. On the clinical trial side, we know that every time you have more granular data about patients in a clinical trial, you get better endpoints. You get better analysis to be able to reach that endpoint and move on to the next stage. So remote patient monitoring was not quite a thing 3 to 5 years ago. So on one hand, we have synthetic data arms coming into the clinical trial space. And then we have ideas around remote patient monitoring that can actually help you collect better data about patients in the clinical trial. That has a direct impact on how quickly you can bring a therapy to market, right? The faster it escapes out of a clinical trial, the faster you can put it in for a submission, right? Commercial operations, to me, is actually one of the areas where there is going to be a massive shift in the life sciences space. And this is about moving away from a classic model of commercialization, which delved heavily on CRM systems, to be frank, and an army of salespeople who go and talk to physicians, they talk to other healthcare providers. Shifting that over to a more data-driven engagement requires a lot of GenAI capability at the back end. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So everything is shifting. And we are doing what we can. Andrea mentioned, we depend very heavily on partners to help build the last mile workflows, the last mile engagement system, so you can actually get value out of the applications built on Google Cloud. On our end, what we are focused on are creating reference architectures. We understand the life sciences industry is very much a build industry. There are great demands when it comes to compliance, demands when it comes to your ability to manage data, the IP that is going in through your R&D. So we are creating reference architectures, like what is a reference architecture for identifying a target and a lead identification, right? So if you want to build it on your own, we have foundational technologies that you can leverage. There are also systems out there that will sit on top of these reference architectures to be able to do highly contextualized target and lead identification. If you're in oncology, you're not going to get that from Google. You're going to get that through an application that sits on top of it. So you can see across personalizing experiences, improving research insights, looking at developing more efficient operations, right? You will get that from Google. But the applications that sit on top of those platforms are going to invariably come from partners. Even when you're looking at the build cycle, you're looking at refactoring your data department or your data departments within your organization. That is a complex enterprise. I think it's just starting to dawn upon everybody that not only it's complex, it also can be very expensive, right? And that's one of the things we hear from our customers. So one of the first things that you have to do, and this is where some of the changing role of pharma is coming. We know about data silos. They've always been there. But now you have new data sets. You have data sets coming from providers that are going into your R&D processes. You have data sets coming in from providers that are helping you deliver a remote patient monitoring program for post-market products. EHR data is an animal of its own, right? So not only you have a lot of data like before, you have many different kinds of data. The ability to be able to build a policy around compliance and around management of that data is a fairly complex enterprise. Security, Andrea touched on that a little. I think every Google product that's built, the foundational technologies that we build, are based with compliance and privacy first. She showed a very nice slide with all the compliances that are out there today. That's going to be twice as big in like 5 years. No one really knows how to regulate AI, right? No one really has put out a comprehensive framework on how do you make AI compliant. Do you know it's compliant? Even more importantly, how do I audit it? Right, so all of these things are going to be coming. So how do you future-proof your operations today so you are ready for tomorrow? Right, so that's something that goes in there. I just mentioned cost and complexity. This is a fairly complex enterprise, building AI solutions. It can also be a cost buster, right, to just completely, honestly put it out there. So now we end up at this juncture where how do I take all of this innovation that's available, this new market that's opened up, like with precision medicine and these gene and cell-based therapies, and how do I do it in an efficient manner, right? Innovation and efficiency typically are two different parts of the process. This is going to require everybody, all of us, to think about this together at the same time. And it's just a journey. So our very strong belief, and this is why you're all here today, is that there has to be a combination of foundational technologies that you get from Google Cloud that are going to help you establish the fundamental command and control on your data and your operations, and layer on top of it solutions that our ISV partners are bringing to market. And that's the combination, when done in the right way, can yield significant results. So Sarita is going to cover a lot about our technology, but I want to kind of seed this right now. There are 5 key technologies that we think, out of our big swath of foundational stack that we have, that are really germane to be able to build a good AI system. The first one is our healthcare data engine. This is a reference architecture that accommodates siloed data sets, systems of record, purchase data, third-party data, de-identified data, and be able to create an underlying set of services that helps you manage that in a compliant manner as the data travels through the process of R&D all the way to patient treatment. Our Vertex AI engine is a universal AI ML workbench. And I'll say that again. It's a universal AI ML workbench. It can accommodate Google models like MetaLM and Gemini. It can also accommodate third-party models like Claude, Llama, and there are more to come. We're in fact going to be launching in the second half of this year a model garden. So first-party models, third-party models, custom models, they can all be accommodated in a universal AI workbench. We think that's really germane to be able to build good AI systems. And then BigQuery and Fire speaks for itself. You need a place to bring all the data in, and we believe it's best of breed set of products. And then our healthcare API. It's actually a very broad API. We probably won't go into a lot of detail today, or maybe a little bit. from what Sarita is saying. But this is where you have all of the natural language processing. You have the ability to DID data. You have the ability to tag data as to what it's supposed to do when as a part of the process. So keeping yourself compliant as the data moves along the pipeline of an overall process is something Healthcare API helps you manage. And then imaging AI, if you have very specific AI systems and you want to infuse generative AI into it, our imaging AI API is also really important. Now, one of the themes you will see through the presentation today is our partners that are presenting today are built on those core technology pieces that I just mentioned. And what that does is a couple of things. From an innovation perspective within the ecosystem, it helps you to actually build horizontal data pipelines across applications and think of everything at a process level. And we think that's really important. Infusing AI capabilities into a application is one thing. It has some benefits. But the ability to be able to build AI models that span an entire process in multiple applications because they're using the same common technological underpinnings, we think is a great benefit on how to think about the ecosystem. We are very much focused on creating a community with our partners. What that means is not only having events like this where we showcase their innovations to the greater group, but also it involves engaging them in our product development, looking at them appropriately when required as a design partner, doing new innovative projects to deliver on use cases that are emerging in the market. So that community not only includes ISVs, it also includes our systems integrators, which are a very important part of the equation. And in fact, from a compliance perspective, you'll hear from USDM Life Sciences on that a little bit later. And then technology adoption. One of the things that has been sort of a pet peeve of mine is there is so much innovation out there today. The last 12 to 14 months has been off the hook, as they say. Considerations on how to absorb these innovations into your architecture. Just because something innovative is available, your ability to absorb that into your architecture and actually make it functional is a whole different thing. We believe building on common technological underpinnings of the technologies I mentioned gives you that ability or a really, really good starting point. So before I kind of get to the conclusion, let me share with you a little bit of the thought process on how we think about this ecosystem. We know this ecosystem is about building data pipelines, creating insights out of that data, and then making that data actionable. So one of the areas that my team focuses on is ensuring that systems of record, which come in all flavors, right? I talked about EHR a second ago. EHRs, still a lot of them on-prem. There are some that are cloud-based. The ability to be able to pull data out of EHRs in a standardized way into Google Cloud is an area of focus. This is a very content-heavy industry. Unstructured content has been ruling life sciences for years. Your ability to be able to gain insights of the data that's trapped inside of unstructured data, to make it functional, to make it part of your data set so you can build great AI models is another area we focused on. We get lucky sometimes. You'll have products like Box and Ignite that are built on Google Cloud, but then you have other systems that are not. So regardless of what your system of record is, where the data is hiding, there is a way to be able to bring that in, so we put a lot of focus on that. The next big category is once you do have the data, not only onboarding data is important, and Redox will talk about that a little bit today, but also normalizing that data for your use, which, again, Reltio is going to talk about. However, there are other purpose-built systems that are systems of insights that are emerging in the market. You have systems that are focused on scientific instrumentation data collection, like the solution from Ganymede, for example. There are data insight platforms focused on oncology, like Freenome, right? And the list goes on and on and on. So we are working with some very targeted ISVs to make sure that either they're built on Google Cloud technologies or there is a great way to be able to absorb those insights into Google Cloud. That's a second big area of focus. And we're doing these two things frankly, to be able to activate the third part of it. This is where the rubber meets the road, the systems of engagement. I talked about the changing role of pharma, how patient engagement, for example, is becoming important. I think 5, 6 years ago, we would have all said, well, that's like a healthcare provider thing, maybe a payer thing. But now, if you're going to bring in a digital health platform as a pharmaceutical company and engage in some kind of care management or put care workflows in place, you're going to need all the tools that traditionally healthcare providers did. So we see a good crossover in our ecosystem between healthcare and life sciences. This is obviously a representative sample, not the entire ecosystem. So I'm more than happy to talk to anyone about more solutions that are available here, but these are the ones that made this slide look really good. So the benefits of the ecosystem, really, we have paid a lot of close attention to make sure that A, customers are the biggest beneficiaries of operating within the ecosystem, meaning adopting solutions from the ecosystem on Google foundational technologies. We have ensured that from a go-to-market perspective, so you have access to these solutions, our sellers from Google, who are frequently engaging with you, they have the ability to be incented to be able to drive the ecosystem together, because our lifeblood of innovation are the ecosystem partners. And then obviously from a Google perspective, we get customers who are adopting Google Cloud at scale, and they're adopting several solutions that are built on our technology stack. So we have a Google Cloud Marketplace through which most of these solutions you'll see today can be procured. And if they're not on the marketplace today, they're coming soon. But the benefits here are faster integration. So I frequently talk about 3 key legs of the stool to be able to build an AI system, and that is put your data in BigQuery, use the healthcare API, and use Vertex to build the models. That gives you a common landing gear to absorb these solutions into your architecture. So with that, I'll just tell you a couple of the things we're doing in terms of investments for this year and hopefully beyond. Is we believe in an integrated ecosystem. And one of the areas we're investing this year are helping our partners build connectors with each other. How can 2 applications in the ecosystem work seamlessly with each other, build some additional IP that actually makes absorption of those applications into your environment a little easier? That's our Industry Value Network initiative. Then we're also investing in pre-built connectors for select partners to make sure that once they land in your environment, they're easy to be absorbed into your architecture. And then when something is going great, you just do more of that, so that's more partner integrations. So without delaying the showcase too much, let me have Sarita come in and talk a little bit about these foundational technologies that we are building, upon which our ISVs are heavily dependent on. There you go.
All right. Thank you so much, Riju. All right, so next 25 minutes with me, it's going to be a roller coaster. There will be some deep technical details, and then I'll pull you back as to why and the patterns that we are seeing. But before doing that, a quick introduction, why you should listen to me for next 25 minutes. So I am Sarita Joshi. I'm an AI specialist with Google Cloud Healthcare and Life Sciences Organization. What do I do? So I'm right at the intersection of payer, provider, life sciences, ISVs. And not just that, I become the liaison between what our customers are asking for, working with our research arm and our product to have a solution which is customer-centric. And in this scenario, we are talking about patients. We are talking about human lives. So that's pretty much my introduction. All right, so let's take a step back to what Riju said, right? In recap, we are all in this together. Are we? People who are remote listening to me? Yes? Yes, all right. So with respect to the estimation, right, McKinsey report from April, we are talking about an economic scale of 60 to 110 billion, okay, across the value chain that we spoke about in the life sciences value chain that Riju just mentioned. And these are some numbers. You can take a look at the report. This is publicly available. Now, let's talk about a recent report that came in May of this year, talking about the flywheel of data and AI. Now, what we are talking here is, at this point in time, for the industry that we live and breathe in, more accessible than ever, generative AI has identified a pattern to harness the data that has been untouched in your own ecosystem in a way wherein the heavy, undifferentiated heavy lifting can be taken care by a technology like generative AI. Now, moving on, so one of the key things before I jump on to some of the research innovations that we have done is, why now? Why now? Let's take a small example here. Let's just say I like maroon color. I go in to Nordstrom.com. I love shopping. I go in, I put an image in there. Based on the image, there is an agent that kicks in on the website, grabs all the right set of information for me, be it say Google search, be it say the whole Nordstrom website, gives me the catalog, does the ranking, does all the personalization for me. My satisfaction score, I'll say 10 on 10. I'm the happy customer because everything is personalized for me at a fingertip. Now, let's take that to the life sciences context. Let's just say we have experts who are working on clinical trial. We have experts who are working on identifying compounds that can create net new drug that can solve for so many millions of lives, right? Now, we have disparate sources of data landing all across the enterprises. To Riju's point, data is that differentiated value in the current ecosystem. You might have integrations, you might have your own data sets. Now, imagine that same agent experience. I'm sitting in here, I have an assistant right next to me. All I say is, grab me all the information related to a specific condition. Now, imagine the power of the agent. Goes in, finds out the right information, cites the resources for you, and gives you a summary. Customer satisfaction, in this case, customer satisfaction is a clinician solving big problems in life sciences. That's pretty much why. All right, so before we jump into the products, the foundational underpinning of what happens when, I would like to walk you through the journey of Google when we talk about research and innovation. So as you can see in here, it's a simple timeline. From 2015 all the way to 2024, I will emphasize few things that are highly important and relevant for the context of life sciences. AlphaFold, when we talk about research and discovery, we started the journey back in there. And then talking 2024, the era that we live and breathe in, we call it as era of Gemini. The groundbreaking effort when we talk about multimodal approach. Why? Think about the context size. Now, in the context of life sciences, think about the number of documents that you have to go through for a specific problem or even where to get started. That itself is time consuming, right? So that is where we are today. While we talk about this, we talk about all this innovation, we have a dedicated team of Google Health researchers who are continuously optimizing this, solving for the net new thing so that as a customer, as a life sciences organization, you will solve for the business outcome that you're looking forward to. All right, let's talk about genomics. The first piece of the puzzle, the research and development. Shout out to the genomics Google Health team. What you're seeing on the screen in here, right? All the way from a specimen to the point that we are talking about drug discovery, agriculture, diagnosis, so on and so forth. These are the set of models. These are the set of sustained development over a period of time that help you accelerate that journey forward. So a simple architecture, right? All we are seeing is a specimen from a sequencer, then a base alignment, and then we have a variant calling. If you talk about the data layer, I will keep it for the FormBio team, who are one of our delivery partners, and they can talk about the architecture or the reference architecture that we have. From a science perspective, this is net new. Our product that we keep on, our commitment to open source, we keep on releasing those so that people like you can get the benefit of that. All right. Last but not the least, very simple one when we talk about devices, a very simple example that we published. Here is the manuscript if you want to take a look at that. Think about biomarkers from devices. That's innovation. That's a work continuously in progress. Right now, I'll make a distinction between the research arm versus what goes into the product, and then towards the end, I will summarize the whole value chain of how we operate. Last piece, as you can see in here, hot off the press, April 29th, we have the capabilities of Gemini in medicine. Now imagine a context of 1 million or more, advanced reasoning capabilities, having a self-trained mechanism with fine-tuning. Not just that, having custom encoders to solve for the intricacies of data. Now think about your organization, think about life sciences, think about the modalities that we're dealing with. Not just that, we have ontologies associated on top of that that makes our day job complex. So what we are solving for is, as you can see in here, just a representation, multimodal. We are leveraging the power of Gemini, helping the system understand the context associated with medical clinical domain, and the net new result is MedGemini. Last but not the least, everything that we do at Google Cloud, these are our, I would say, the mental model or the mantra that we live and breathe with respect to what we are solving for, how we are innovating, and the technologies that we are solving for. All right, so that was a quick snapshot of Google research. Again, thank you to the team. Now we'll focus more on Google Cloud, the underpinning of the solution, be it, say, a partner-driven approach, or be it, say, a solution architecture that is powered by Google Cloud Services. Where do you see Google on the screen? Right here, at the star, right? So what we are seeing is Forrester just released a recent report, wherein, as you can see in here, we continue to remain the leader when it comes to all things AI. If you can look at this, we started with the Lakehouse, the net new release in 2024, AI services, AI infrastructure, the whole ecosystem. Why? This is a testimony of the fully integrated platform, all the way from our chipsets to our models, and then the capability. When we talk about capability, think about your end users, the ease of use and an integrated system all the way from the data layer to deriving insights. All right, so era of Gemini, what does this mean, right? So in the context of life sciences, think about the data sets. We might have text data, a lot of unstructured, more than 87% is unstructured at this point in time, and it continues to grow. We have images, we have sound, we have video. So what we have done, just to give you a context associated with that, here is the manuscript tied to the screen here. Idiom. You can take 3 hours of non-stop video and you can derive insights. Now think about a video Q&A as a use case. The second one, audio. You can have 2 million tokens that go all the way up to 22 hours that can be processed using the power of Gemini. Last but not the least, when we're talking about the token size, we're talking about up to 10 million tokens. Again, the manuscript is detailed in this link. And when we talk about, is this service available? Yes. Powered by, you might have heard the term that Riju kept mentioning, which is Vertex AI. So Vertex AI is our single, I would say, an entry point for any AI practitioner, or in this new world, we say AI is for all. So for anyone who is interested to get the benefit of our Gemini models, we have multiple versions of Gemini. Gemini 1.0 is GA, and then we have Gemini 1.5, which is in preview at this point in time. Okay, so this slide talks about, as you can see, help large language models for multimodal understanding. How does it differentiate from the previous slide? The way you should think about this is Google's investment on a horizontal capability, which is Gemini 1.5. Now, imagine the power of having custom encoders on top of it. We call it as Gemini Medical Multimodal. Now, a customer like you, going back to the same scenario, if you have your data, the data becomes your differentiated valuable asset. You can take the medical Gemini model, the investment by Google, have an accelerated speed by grabbing that, adapting to your own data set in few clicks. This is how you should think about acceleration and how can I bring this solution to my ecosystem. All right, so this is a repeat of what I just said. So just a lay of the land, native Gemini encoders that are able to understand medical specific context. Obviously, if you have a very specific ontology, like I said, you might think about an option to fine tune on top of that. And then you have a specialist tool. Now, with respect to, these are the few examples that comes to mind when you talk about how can I leverage this in the context of life sciences. Think about breast cancer detection using your full data set. Go back to my example of the agents, right? If you have an agent who is taking care of orchestrating, who is taking care of finding the specific information from your corpus. I will emphasize from your corpus, and if you want to go out to say a public PubMed data set or say clinicaltrials.gov. So there is an option to grab the data set from your own corpus and also have an augmented scenario wherein you can lean on an external search. The second example, right, fast cohort of patients for clinical trials. Now imagine an ecosystem, like I said, giving back my second example to you, wherein I can have a simple English query to identify specific cohorts associated. One example I'll give you is the Broad Institute, based in Boston. We have been working, they are our esteemed innovation partners. We work very closely with them. One of the key opportunities that we are exploring with them is, there is a service, I will go back to that service in few minutes from now, which is vector engine. Now imagine the space of embeddings. Now imagine the power of these multimodal images. What we are trying to do is, can we have fast cohorting of patients using these technologies as underpinning to solve for the current benchmark? Last but not the least, as Riju was trying to mention, we have everything in here, right? All the way from text data, unstructured, structured data to radiology, so on and so forth. The outcome is, if I'm a consumer who's purchasing a top and I give a CSAT of 10 on 10, why not a personalized treatment based on the recommendation, based on the history, based on the context? All right, so now we'll shift gears a little bit here. Evolution of AI capabilities over a period of time. Riju mentioned a little bit about natural language processing too. So how we started? A lot of this today is still predictive, wherein in the industry that we live and breathe in, we need the confidence score. We need to say, hey, I'll go ahead with this solution if the confidence interval is beyond X, Y, and Z. The second piece, wherein generative, again, going back to the context of life sciences, think about draft clinical protocol creation. Now, once you create that document, there might be different flavors of that document. So can you have a prompt engine within your ecosystem that takes care of the nitty-gritties, changes the prompt based on who your end user is, and grabs you a summary on the fly? Obviously, there will be always a human in the loop. So think about this as my iPhone. My iPhone can't replace Sarita Joshi at this point in time, but then it becomes my assistant to grab me the first few set of drafts so that I'm much more efficient with respect to what I'm doing. All right? Then the third piece of the puzzle, where Gemini kicks in, are capabilities of multimodal, grabbing in all the way from natural language, text, unstructured, speech, so on and so forth. One piece I would highlight, which is, again, the power of our integrated stack, which is these bottom layers here. Okay? For the crowd today, it would be too much, but just to give you a TLDR. In a classical machine learning, right, my X years of building models and deploying models at scale, we start with rapid experimentation. Hundreds of that rapid experimentation leads to a POC or an MVP. From MVP, we have a cycle to tune it, test it, validate it, deploy it, and the cycle repeats. So we are talking about a continuous feedback mechanism. So these are guardrails. We call it as 2 years back, there was a term called as MLOps, which was hit. Every persona on LinkedIn will talk about MLOps. Now, the same thing has been converted to so-called as FMOps or LLM ops, which is the whole life cycle of how do I track, how do I build pipelines, how do I ensure that within my organization there is a metadata associated with that, how do I do continuous monitoring, so on and so forth, and then there are net new concepts, which is prompting. If you don't know what prompting is, talk to me during the break time. Prompting, tuning, okay, reinforcement learning with human in the loop, grounding, so on and so forth. And the other net new concept, RAG, right? Can anyone tell me the full form of RAG in the audience? All right, okay, that was pun intended, by the way. So, two things, prompt engineering at this point in time and RAG, that's like bread and butter. Anything, like I said, AI is for all. So at this point in time, at least you should know what is what to the point that you can actually enable yourself, and then you can actually solve for the solutions because we all are in this together. All right, moving on. Okay, so a little bit about Gemini. So as you can see in here, highly optimized for, we have 3 flavors of Gemini. We start with the first one, which is, like I said, with respect to the differentiator, the context size. We are talking millions. I already gave you a TLDR of that. We talk about, so you might have heard about the Samson plus Google AI narrative, right? So think about from the context of med devices. If you have the power of Gemini, which is supercharged with behind-the-scene architecture that can do reasoning and all that stuff, but there are techniques, there are innovations, example, cascading techniques, distillation techniques, that you can bring it to devices, right? That's the art of the possible that you should be thinking through in the context of life sciences. So that's our Gemini Nano. As the term says, we use innovative techniques that are developed by our arm called as DeepMind. You guys must be familiar of that. And we continue to iterate on these technologies so that we can give you the best given the use case we are solving for. Then comes the Gemini Pro. At this point in time, it's GA. Everyone here is able to pick and place that. Gemini 1.5, the best model so far with the context size of 1 million. This is where we are at public preview, and near future, we will have a GA for that too. All right, so now if you might ask me, where do I get started? If you haven't already done it, this is a quick overview of, there are 2 modes to get into the system. One is, we call it as a Google AI Studio. So think about this as brand new. Today from this session, you just learned prompt engineering and RAG from me. You want to try it somewhere. Where do you go? Just Google in AI Studio. It will take you to a landing page. The landing page will give you simple, user-friendly, our commitment for these technologies to be at your fingertip. It will allow you to have a very simple prompt, and then it will grab output. Nothing needs to happen. Now, but then we are talking about enterprise. We are talking about healthcare and life sciences. So then the other option that we have when we talk about building and scaling solution at scale, enterprise readiness or path to production, the entry point for anyone who wants to access it would be Vertex AI Studio, which is our enterprise-ready platform. As always, like Andrea mentioned, all our founding principles, all the way from identity, authorization, bringing your own custom keys, mechanisms to deploy, it's all baked in that single entry point, which is Vertex AI. Quick time check here. OK, I'm doing good. All right, so I'm going to skip this for, OK. Now, this slide talks about our commitment to open source. And the perfect example is Gemma. So think about this. We started this journey. We started with Palm. We moved to Gemini. We have different flavors of Gemini. Now we said our commitment to open source, if somebody wants to pick in, play around with our models, do we have a provisioning for that? For example, if I'm a student, I know Riju's daughter is here. If I'm a student, I want to just go to Kaggle. I want to play with one of the best technologies that Google Cloud can provide. You can just go into Gemma, start playing around with that, tune it on the fly, and then the model waits, everything is yours. So that's our continued commitment to open source and OSS. Now, an overview of all that we have to provide, the examples that I have been telling you so far. So how you should think about this, right? The underpinning of ultra-scale Google Cloud infrastructure, which is our tensor processing unit, decades worth of research invested in creating our own chips. On top of that, there might be a term you might have heard about from any AI practitioner if you met, which is be a gardener. In this era, be a gardener. What does that mean? That means, going back to Riju's comment, right? We allow you to access at your fingertip. You bring in your own data in your own tenant. We give you our decades worth of research in the form of API that also supports SDK. If you love Python, play with Python. If you like REST, go with REST. Or if you just want to play around with that API, just go to AI Studio. So not just that, our commitment to our partners and third party. Today, we have 130+ models. The best ones that you can see, oh, Hugging Face leaderboard is shining with this model. Can I bring that to our ecosystem? Our commitment is yes, and yes, we will optimize those models for you so that you get the scale, you have optimization with respect to cost, and you have the whole guardrail of enterprise readiness given to you because the model will be landed in Model Garden. That's the beauty. That's the value proposition. Moving on, if you are a model builder, if you are a practitioner who is solving from some critical scenarios dealing with life sciences and lives, this is the scenario wherein you go in, you start with prompt tuning. You can start with concepts like distillation. You can build an end-to-end pipeline. One click can help you deploy that solution that becomes a reusable artifact within your organization. So this stack is for an AI practitioner. Moving on, this was the concept of agent builder. Now imagine in your ecosystem, you took all the learnings from the session today, you start playing around. Customers come to us, which is, hey, we are here to solve the most complex problem in life sciences industry. What I want you to do is abstract everything. Give me a no-code solution that allows me to pick the right model. All I'll do is I just have to do a few clicks to create something, and the rest is taken care. The answer is agent builder. The same example that I gave you relating back, wherein if I have a picture, I upload it, it finds the recommendation, it does the personalization on the fly. What is that solution? So think about this, going on to the next slide. Okay, a little too far. Okay, so think about this as you can have a data agent, you can have an employee agent, you can have a clinician agent, and these agents, they know based on what natural language query. Again, plain English that you can put in, the agent knows how to orchestrate, the agent knows which model to call, gives you the right result. That's the power of agent builder. All right, so this is, I'm going to skip through this slide. The idea here is, as you can see in here, our commitment, 130 plus enterprise-ready models that are made available to you. This is, the top floor is Gemini. Then we have the whole journey, which is Palm 2, ImageGen for Image AI, so on and so forth. Then we have Google specific, which is unstructured data. Think about a bunch of PDFs coming your way. So you have Doc AI, then you have text-to-speech, you have natural language processing, you have domain-specific LLMs, our investment on top of the general models. We have MedLM, we have SecLM. Last but not the least, a list which is like, won't even represent the 130 plus models, otherwise we won't have space, but just to give you a flavor, this is our entire ecosystem. A very high-level overview of if you are that AI practitioner, how do you go ahead? This is what I was trying to tell you. You start with the prompt design, you do supervised tuning, you will always have a human in the loop, you do a distillation step, and then for evaluation, one of our key differentiator, which is model A better than model B? How do I know? I don't know. So that is where Vertex AI gives you techniques that are created by our researchers, given to you in the form of an API and a framework. We call it as a matrix-based evaluation or a side-by-side evaluation. And last but not the least, we have extensions. Extensions as in, think about this. You did a summary, now you need to act on this. You need some sort of a calling mechanism. How do you do that? So with Gemini, we release extension that can take a call to action based on what you found, which is search-based extension, or if you're looking for, say, code optimization, you want to focus on just generating some test sets for your developers, you can do that too. All right, so now I'm going to introduce you to one of our key differentiators, which is, now imagine, let's go back to that clinical trial example. You're looking for the right data at your fingertip. Now think about Google search capabilities given to you in your corpus, in your enterprise ecosystem, and you know which third-party connectors to connect with. Meaning a holistic way of solving for, can I have a Google-like search engine that can go across variety of data sets in my own ecosystem and then focus on giving me relevant scores, focus on giving me a summarization on the fly? The answer to that is, we call it as Vertex search. So the example that you see on the screen is, if you have to build your search, and then when I talk about search, this is not net new. Think about Google search is just examples, but enterprises are still on Solar. They are on Lucid. What is the new way? How do I optimize on the old way and then focus on technology at your fingertip? The answer to that is out of the box large language model that will allow you to do parsing, chunking, embedding, all behind the scene. Not just that, if you are a customer who's thinking about, can I bring my own parser? I have my own fine-tuned llama. Can I bring that in? The answer is yes. You can bring your embeddings, you can bring your ranking models, you can bring your own. So you can use the best of Google. If you want to do customization, you can also focus on that. All right, so this was the slide that I was talking about. So again, all the way from infrastructure to models to platform, these are the different set of agents that can allow you to do orchestration on the fly. So I'm going to quickly jump to the last slide, which is of all that we heard, right? We started with our journey in research. We broke the research into genomics. We broke it in further down to say what is happening in the terms of large language models, and then we started our journey in multimodal. Now, what we are saying here is, now the question might be, in an extremely regulated industry like life sciences, what I want to do is double down on our mental model. Our mental model is your prompts are your prompts. Your data is your data. What we give you is the enterprise guardrails associated with solving for the business problem that you're trying to solve for, right? And last but not the least, anything that we do, we have some certain policies. You might have heard about concepts like safety filters, so on and so forth. So we ensure that the whole responsible AI framework that we released in 2018 adheres to the whole flywheel, all the way from our research arm to our product development to exposing those APIs so that a customer like you can leverage the best of Google Cloud. So that's pretty much the technology stack. If you have any questions for me, I'll be right there in the breakout area. Thank you.
Perfect. Looks like we got the right slides up. You do not want to hear me pitch AI. It won't go well. Instead, what I'm going to talk about is the underlying data sets necessary to actually drive and power your AI. So first off, good afternoon. Thanks for coming today. It's great to see so many faces in the crowd. My name is Tim Kessler. I'm our Director of Solutions Architecture with Redox. And Redox is a healthcare data platform. We exist to provide a single access point for all of the healthcare data you could ever need to work with. So it doesn't matter if we're talking about FHIR data, as we saw presented earlier with Healthcare API and Healthcare Data Engine, or more legacy formats, things like HL7v2, XML-based CCDs. And if we keep going down this list, we're going to get to a lot of data formats that hopefully you guys never have to come across because, quite frankly, they're gross. But at Redox, we exist to provide that single API layer that's going to give you access, monitoring, connectivity. We handle all of the kind of gross data formats, translate that into a consistent format that you can work with. And I love this slide because we're really good at it. Today, we're processing over 1 billion transactions per month. And when I say transactions, what I mean here is that's a patient being admitted. That's an order being placed. That's a result being documented. That is clinical data being entered into a system for a specific patient. And we're processing over 1 billion of these every month. We have, actually, this is a little outdated. We're over 7,000 healthcare organizations live with Redox today. We power over 400 digital health applications. So Riju presented the slide earlier that shows all of these different products that are really trying to close the gap between life sciences, pharma companies, and the actual patient at the end who's on the benefit of receiving all of this support and services. We power over 400 of these applications. We integrate with over 95 different EHR systems. So that's going to be 10 that you've definitely heard of: Epic, Cerner, athenahealth, Allscripts, MedTech, McKesson, and another 84 that hopefully you don't come across too often. They get pretty dirty. And this leads to over 21,000 production interfaces. So we see a lot of data coming through our system in a lot of different formats. And again, our focus is how can we put that into a consistent format that's going to be usable so that when we get the data to its endpoint, to our customer's environment, it's ready to go. There's not a lot more cleaning that needs to be done. There's not a lot more management or maintenance. We want to get data in a usable format to our customers. And I do want to call out that the last 2 lines here. So we're over 7,000 healthcare organizations today. A typical implementation timeline for us to kick off a project and get live production data is only about 4 to 6 weeks. So you see a lot of groups talking about activating real-time healthcare data, and they start talking about 9, 12, 18-month timelines. And by that point, I mean, Google would have released 12 new AI models in that implementation period. So with Redox, you're looking at about a 4 to 6 week implementation timeline to get this data live and flowing. And my favorite link at the bottom, explore.redoxengine.com. We list all 7,000 of those healthcare organizations, all 95 plus EHRs. It's all public. You can see what our footprint actually looks like and interact with it. So with Google, I mentioned I'm not an AI expert. I'm really glad that we had all that AI expertise in advance of me coming up, because what Redox does is we're looking to power that data into the GCP ecosystem, into the Google products, so that experts that actually understand AI, that have built incredible tooling within the Vertex AI ecosystem, can help you make use of that data. At the end of the day, if you want to actually have a successful AI strategy, first and foremost, you need to have a successful data strategy. You need to have consistent data sets that you can work with, that you can build on top of, so that you can have end users in this ecosystem spending more time working with that data rather than cleaning that data. I have a couple examples of groups that we integrate with today. So I have to list Epic. I used to work there. That's how I got in this ecosystem, how I spent so much time working with healthcare data. We, of course, integrate with them. And not just pulling data from these ecosystems like Epic, Meditech, the care quality ecosystem, Dexcom, who's one of our customers that we power integrations for, but we also write data back into this ecosystem. So when we talk about making healthcare data useful, when we talk about closing the gap between the product services and the research that's being done to advance healthcare, we can't forget about the patient and the provider. And at the end of the day, Redox is not just pulling data out of these ecosystems, sharing that with our partners, but also writing data back into the EHR, putting it into the workflow at the provider's fingertips, so they're not jumping between 3, 4, 5 different screens, trying to interact with a bunch of tools. They have everything they need in their typical workflow right where they would expect it to be. Now, I mentioned that we work with over 400 different applications. We have over 7,000 healthcare organizations that we partner or that we integrate with today. I wanted to list a couple of the logos that we're driving integrations for. So first and foremost, you'll see this is across the entire continuum of care. So not just provider-level integrations. We work with very large payers, helping them get closer to the patient, helping them close the time to actually act on a prior authorization. We work with a lot of life sciences companies, groups that are actually trying to bring digital therapeutics into the ecosystem and make that data useful. Again, push that data back into the provider's fingertips so that when they're making treatment decisions for their patients, they can have much more informed decisions from data that's collected at home. For example, when you look at Dexcom, when you look at Abbott, when you look at Semaphore, these are tools, these are systems that are collecting data outside the traditional healthcare ecosystem and making that data valuable and useful to the providers that are helping treat those patients. Now, again, looking at the entire continuum of care, I've tried to gray out the provider, the payer use cases. We can highlight those in another presentation. What I really want to talk about, and we'll cover in a couple of slides looking at some specific use cases, is really where Redox interacts within that life science ecosystem. So you're going to hear me talk at great length about clinical data registry support, as well as digital therapeutic integrations. These are things that we do day in and day out and really help power data collection and aggregation, as well as write back and usability of that data for our partners. But at the end of the day, when you think about where this information is being generated, it's a patient in front of a provider entering into their EHR or some other source system. And that data, again, needs to be pulled out, needs to be made consistent, and that's what Redox is looking to power. Taking that real-world data and putting it in the hands and the tools of systems like what Google is building to make this data useful. So Riju presented a couple different tools, things like Vertex AI, called out Healthcare Data Engine, Healthcare API. Redox integrates seamlessly with all of these tools. We can write FHIR data directly to Healthcare API. We can stream this data in real time into the Healthcare Data Engine, so you can build that longitudinal patient record and understand the patients that you're working with. Not just have a snapshot in time from a single CCD or PDF that's pulled one time, but aggregate that data as it's generated in real time to be able to make decisions more at an operational level. Talking about, when I say real time, what I mean here is seconds. Patients discharged from a healthcare organization, within 50 milliseconds, that message is going to hit Redox. We're going to translate that into a FHIR format. We can enrich that with some of our other partners if there's additional context that you need from there. And then we can translate that into the FHIR format, get that into your Google Cloud environment, all within the span of under a second. So that when you're actually looking to drive things like discharge planning workflows or ensuring that a patient's care plan is being adhered to, they're being treated immediately post-discharge and reducing that risk of readmission, that's all going to require that real-time access to this data that Redox can enable. So I mentioned I was going to call out a couple of use cases in scenarios where we're actually seeing this being done. One of our large pharma services customers that we work with very closely, can't say names, but one of our large pharma services companies that we power clinical registry integrations for uses us to pull data from many different healthcare organizations that they work with in a FHIR format, get that into a consistent ecosystem so that they can actually power this longitudinal view of these individual patients that they're tracking across all of these different healthcare organizations for that specific registry use case. Now, I love using this example because we actually replaced one of our competitors in this scenario where the integrations were taking about 7 days from initial query until that data was actually returned to them in that format. Redox does this in about 2 hours. So there's a lot of patients we're running through, querying against many different healthcare organizations, but the actual speed to value in activating this data, getting it into your ecosystem and making it usable, that is what we want to do. That's what we focus on. And getting this data into the hands of your end users in a way that they can make use of it quickly and efficiently is where we excel. And I had to include the Epic logo here, had to talk about some use cases we're driving within the Epic ecosystem specifically. And this is one of my favorite examples because when we talk about digital therapeutics, when we talk about actually implementing products and seeing the value of that solution with your patients, there's a lot out there. There's hundreds, maybe even thousands of applications that you can actually deploy. And it's really difficult for a healthcare organization to make decisions around what they want to implement, what they want to try out, and what's going to be successful. Now, when you look at implementation timelines that range from 9 to 12 to 18 months, you can't rapidly make decisions around that. You can't run a quick proof of concept, test something out. I mean, if you turn to your IT team and say you're going to run a proof of concept that's going to take 18 months to get live, that project's never getting started. But with Redox, we work really closely with one of our customers, Memorial Care. And we power them to rapidly proof of concept these digital therapeutic applications, roll these out in a matter of weeks with very, very little IT team engagement. So it's actually feasible for them to say, hey, we want to test this out with one of our small patient populations. The implementation is going to be a couple weeks. We're going to get this data live. We're going to run a 3-month pilot where we're pulling all this data into our ecosystem. We're then going to reach out to these patients, see how successful this has been, whether or not this is something that's valuable to our providers getting this data into their ecosystem, and what we can do to actually make this more valuable. So our ability with Redox in at Memorial Care, we can actually activate these implementations and these applications in a time frame that's reasonable for them to test, POC, see what's working, and then move on and try new things. Now, when you look at the broader Google ecosystem, there's so many different products that can be enabled, so many different applications that can be powered. All of them need data. So when you're trying to wonder, where do we start engaging with Redox? Where do we start? Exactly what we did with Memorial Care, we can do with anybody who's looking to leverage some of these new products, these new functionalities, these new AI models within the GCP ecosystem. You want to rapidly innovate with a new Gemini AI model, and you want to get data into your ecosystem that can actually make this valuable and useful to your end users. That's a scenario where Redox can tap into these systems, get that data flowing in a matter of weeks, not months, not years, so that you can actually turn around results within the quarter rather than within the next couple of years. The most important piece, Redox can, of course, be bought on the Google Marketplace. We've been partnering with Google for quite a while now in an effort to actually not just activate groups that want to get their data onto GCP, but also activate other partners within this ecosystem. So when I come to an event like this and see groups like Myndshft, see groups like Reltio, who we've had a lot of conversations with in order to get data into these ecosystems and help more rapidly power these tools, you start to see the value of the whole GCP partner ecosystem coming together. It's been a delight working with Google and all the partner folks within the organization, and actually seeing things like this get live, that we can actually start deploying these services very, very quickly, is exactly what we're focused on. So thank you. I'll be in the back. I'm not taking questions now, but I'll be in the back if anyone has any questions. Up next, I want to pass it off to Scott from Reltio to expand on the work that they're doing in the MDM space.
All right. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that. It's great to see a pending Reltio partner, and we actually share investors, so we work very closely with the Redox team. My name is Scott Vandiver. I'm responsible for North American go-to-market for Reltio. I've been at Reltio for 9.5 years, so went in very early in our journey. My background is in the enterprise application and data space, working for companies like Informatica, SAP, and others. So really a great opportunity to be here with you today. Appreciate our gracious host from GCP for having us. If you'll bear with me, I have 4 kids. They always say I'm the master of the obvious. So I'm going to be the master of the obvious for just a few minutes. Just bear with me, but I'll get to the point. I think we can all violently agree that even before the AI tidal wave hit us last year, that data is at the center of every massive digital transformation that we've been embarking upon for the last 5, 6, 10 years. Data is growing exponentially. The number of data sources are growing by the dozens every year. And obviously, companies who cannot keep up with this are going to have massive implications. And then, of course, you have this thing called AI, right? And whether you're at Dreamforce and you're listening to Benioff talk about how they're the next big AI company, or you're talking to another superscaler, or a conference like this, there's no doubt there's huge opportunity to leverage AI within our operations. However, every AI initiative starts with clean, trustworthy, authoritative, accessible data that can be available in real time. Without that, the outcomes you're going to get are going to be suboptimal, and you could face regulatory risk and reputational risks if you come out with the wrong answer at the wrong time. Sarita had this slide up here. Sarita, wherever you get your coffee in the morning, let me know where that is, because I want to go to that place. Are you? Wow. Okay. Well, so I won't repeat this. Massive opportunity, 50 plus billion on the low end of opportunity. But as I mentioned, the challenge that large enterprises face, and Reltio, we've been actually been actively in the market for over 10 years. We started out in the life sciences business. That's where we cut our teeth in the large enterprise. But most large enterprises have over 450 applications within their infrastructure, right? And that's growing. So it's an extremely complex ecosystem of systems, analytic systems that you're pulling data from. You're trying to drive into your business processes to activate that data, to make decisions, or drive that data back out to your omni-channel systems or your systems of engagement. So extremely complex network. And on top of it, for a large pharma company or a mid-size, we actually work with pre-commercial farmers as well, you got your day jobs, right? And there's tremendous headwinds, there's tremendous pressures, growing competition, clinical trials moving to a virtual operational mode, there's digital everything, trying to get closer to patients and HCPs, understanding, it's not just the old sales model, right? It's an account-based model where, from a commercial go-to-market perspective, where you have to understand a relationship with a doctor, with an HCO, with an integrated delivery network, right? With a GPO. These are complex problems that you're faced with, and an ever-increasing amount of regulation, and not just within the U.S., globally. Like, we work with our large pharma companies on a global basis, even in China. We have data centers to support localized data in China. So you have to deal with all that privacy and consent, regulatory pressure. So, you have your day jobs and you have all this AI stuff coming at you. It's like, what do I do now, right? And there's huge opportunity, right? And huge negative business implications from these challenges, whether it be reduced sales effectiveness, delayed clinical trials, higher costs of clinical trials, cost of regulatory compliance, which has huge impacts on the bottom lines. And ultimately, it's really about optimizing patient outcomes. That's why we're all here. Ultimately, we're all here. Hopefully, yes, we have to drive shareholder value, but also drive the most optimal patient outcomes we can possibly deliver. The good news is there are platforms like Redox, like Reltio, that are focused on solving this complex problem for large enterprises. And put it very simply, because this is a complex problem in an enterprise class platform we're talking about, Reltio unifies data from your first-party systems, all your enterprise applications, your clinical operation systems, your SAP, your ERP systems, your systems of engagement, all your third-party data providers. Third-party data providers are extremely important to the life sciences industry, whether it be IQVIA, MedPro. There's dozens of various third-party providers that support oncology and various therapeutic areas. Pulling all that data together, cleansing it, matching it, ensuring that it's authoritative, and then making that data accessible to your downstream applications is what we do for our customers. And there's a lot of, you hear the term 360-degree view. Lots of companies run around and talk about, well, we're going to provide you a 360-degree view of your customer. I would argue that we do that. Most companies who say they do that, particularly who come from a CRM background or a service background, they do that within the context of their application. Again, I'll say that again. They do that within the context of their application. You don't need a 360-degree view of your customer in Salesforce. You need a 360-degree view of your customer across your enterprise, across all your touch points. That means you need something that sits on top of that can connect to all your enterprise systems and aggregate that data, relate that data, make it available in real time, highly resilient, and of course support all the standards that you would expect. HIPAA certification, SOC 1, SOC 2, all the European privacy and consent regulations. And again, we even have localization in China to support your global operations. So again, we collect data, we aggregate that. It could be an HCP, an HCO, a patient. It could be a trial, a study. It could be a vendor from a back office perspective. And then we activate that data to support specific business transformations, right? So it could be sales effectiveness, could be segmentation and targeting, could be improving HCP experience. It could be clinical trials optimization, or it could be compliance and how you're driving improved compliance to Sunshine Act, or IDMP. IDMP is certainly a big one for large global life science companies, adhering to the global regulations for IDMP in Europe around product data. Something that's driving a lot of investment in the Reltio platform with our pharmaceutical customers who have operations in Europe. As I mentioned, we were born and bred kind of in this life sciences arena, both med device and big pharma. So over the years, we've developed what we call velocity packs, which are predefined data models that are dynamic, right? We have out-of-the-box matching rules and third-party connectors to the relevant data sources that you need within a pharmaceutical or biopharma environment, which allows you literally on day one from subscribing to the Reltio platform, you can start loading data. And in as little as 3 months, activating that data to support your business processes, many of the business processes I mentioned on the prior slide. Of course, I'm not qualified to talk to this slide, but it wouldn't be a data management presentation if you have like a really gnarly, architectural diagram. But the point here is we are born in the cloud, built in the cloud, a native, true multi-tenant software as a service platform. And we are built on native standard GCP architecture. So we leverage all the goodness, all the innovation that's coming out almost daily, weekly, monthly, within GCP. And we leverage that standard technology, which allows you to access that innovation very, very, very quickly. So we use Spanner, we use Gemini, we have out-of-the-box integration into BigQuery. So all that is out of the box, available for you to use, and leveraging the goodness of GCP. And again, you can listen to me, but I encourage you to talk to our customers, right? We have well over 70 life science and med device customers that really span, pre-commercial pharma, early stage pharma, CROs, big pharma. Again, 22 of the top 23 pharmas are leveraging the Reltio platform and really using us to unify and aggregate data, provide that data, accessible real-time data support, really all aspects of the life sciences value chain. I feel like I'm ignoring this side of the room, I'm sorry. So it could be clinical trials, R&D, supply chain and back office, commercial operations, or even getting into patient engagement, and actually share a joint customer with Redox, Dexcom, where they store a lot of their patient data within the Reltio platform, as well as other large pharmas and consumer health. So we're also prevalent in the consumer products industry and the consumer health industry, where we're actually managing hundreds of millions of consumer profiles for large global consumer brands like Chanel, L'Oreal. Many of those are actually getting into having products which they sell to HCPs, where they need that type of regulatory compliance when they're marketing those products into those types of companies. So, how many people here have gotten a blank check from their CFO? Like, hey, just go build stuff. Just go at it. Knock yourself out. We live in a very financially driven world, right? Nothing gets approved without an ROI, right? So we've worked for the last 8-9 years with our customers, documenting and measuring the business benefit they're getting from a data unification platform. It's not always so straightforward, right? The end application, the end analytic platform, that's the sexy UI. That's where all the the business users typically interact. So without having the value-added data to feed those, right, you're going to get suboptimal results. So we've worked very hard with our customers to allow them to document and measure the return on investment from a data unification platform and how that can impact your operations across the various processes that we talked to you before. And as you can see, we have benchmarks and hard ROI case studies that we can share with you and how you can leverage this platform. So I've spent the last 10 minutes or so talking about Reltio as a data unification platform, how that platform supports large enterprise business processes across various aspects of the value chain. We've actually been using AI and ML within the Reltio platform, started on this journey even well before last year when AI became all the rage, and really have taken a very pragmatic approach, right? How do we leverage this technology that Google and other firms are coming out with to drive improvements within our platform and ultimately for our customers? So we have a general rule of thumb, like, hey, if we can't make a 10x improvement within a capability within the Reltio platform, then we're not going to invest, because there's so many opportunities, honestly. So that becomes the benchmark. So there's 3 that I want to highlight. One is around augmented entity resolution. Another one is around generative AI and how we use it as an interface to engage with the Reltio platform. And then lastly is anomaly detection, easy for me to say, to improve data quality. So, and we're leveraging native Google technologies to support this. So we have a patent pending capability, which we call FERN, which is Flexible Entity Resolution Networks. And basically, this is a AI ML-based algorithm, pre-trained models that allow you to really get away from the old-fashioned rules-based matching and merging that has been kind of inherent in a lot of data management, master data management platforms for decades. Tremendous improvements in accuracy, time to value, and just reducing costs of data stewardship. So this is something we're rolling out, and we're working on this for all the main entities that would be relevant to a life sciences company, for HCPs, for HCOs, for trials, and so forth. We also have gone live with something we call RIA, Reltio Intelligent Assistant. This is a generative AI capability which allows you to interact with the Reltio platform really across multiple facets of the value chain of engagement with Reltio. You could be a data steward and say, why did these 2 things match? What were the match rules that caused this to match, right? Versus having to dig into that manually. You could be a sales rep in the field, because all this capability, Reltio as a modern native SaaS platform, has a very robust REST API. So all these capabilities are available for downstream usage via that REST API. You could be a sales rep in the field, right? Tell me all the affiliations that Dr. Jones has in the Atlanta, Georgia area, right? Versus having to get in and look that up, right? So, or even as an administrator on the back end of the platform, allowing them to do things or to search the support portal and that sort of thing. So this is live and available today within the Reltio platform. And last but not least is improved data quality, right? Gartner came out with a study recently. I think for a large enterprise, data quality deteriorates over 70 to 80% on an annual basis. You have to be on top of this on a continuous basis. And there's a lot of legacy data quality tools out there. This is real time. As soon as data hits Reltio, we're looking at it. We're using ML to model it, look at any exceptions that we can see in the data. And doing that in a traditional manual approach is very timely and costly. So we're looking at AI models, open source models from GCP to try to improve that process to ensure that you have the most relevant, accurate, real-time available for your downstream processes. So that's all I have. I get to introduce a networking break. So, and Riju, so thank you.
That was great.
Yeah.
We'll take a short break, get some refreshments. The drinks are for later in the day. So have some refreshments, fuel up, so we can continue on with the showcase. Thank you all. Welcome back. So we're going to continue the showcase with BrightInsight. It's a digital health platform. So now they're going to be just rapid fire presentations, about 15 minutes each. Then we're going to conclude towards the end with a panel discussion with our special guest. And then you can have champagne and wine. That's the thing. So please go ahead.
That's good. It's always bad to be the last presenter before the champagne. It's good to start after the break. So, hey everyone, this is Ashish Agrawal. I'm the CTO at BrightInsight. Today I'm going to give a quick overview of BrightInsight, what the company is about, what and why we are doing things the way we are doing. Talk a bit about our platform, talk a bit about our products, and with a supported case study and our partnership with Google and GenAI things that we are doing with Google, followed by a couple of demos. So I'll try to make this fast so we are within time. So BrightInsight is a digital healthcare SaaS company, driven primarily by a platform, and we create digital applications for top biopharma customers. So we have 6 of the top biopharma customers who are using our product and solutions. And we are therapy agnostic. So we support about 11 therapies today. So it could be like rare diseases, or it could be specialty drugs. It could be like vision. It could be related to skin. It could be related to diabetes, you name it. And BrightInsight platform is out there to support it. We've been deployed across 64 countries. And we have about 14 SAMD completed. That is kind of one of our specialties. It's been funded by about $186 million by top healthcare and SaaS investors. And we won multiple industry awards, the latest just recently being from Newsweek as best digital health companies globally. Now, I'm going to move in very quickly in terms of what's the problem. So obviously, everyone is familiar and aware that to produce a drug, it takes about 10 to 15 years. It costs about $1 to $3 billion. So there is a lot of time and research that goes into drug creation, which is obviously the right thing to do. And once it is produced, the asset is produced, there is an expectation of high revenue. But a recent study, and there's a bunch of studies around it, which is showing that the ROI of pharma R&D is actually on the decline. The forecast sales from these drugs that are produced is not meeting what pharma was expecting. So essentially, there are 2 problems that need solution, right? Obviously, if you remember Riju's slide as well, he mentioned about the clinical trials, and he mentioned about commercialized therapies. So there are a bunch of companies who are focused on clinical trials, and there's a lot of great GenAI stuff which will be used in order to optimize and make those trials more efficient. BrightInsight focuses on commercialized therapies, which is on the right side. Once the drug or the injectable is ready, how do you make it work with the patients? How do you complete that ecosystem? If you remember, Riju also mentioned that the pharmas now have to get closer to patients and providers. So I think that is what BrightInsight's main value proposition is. Now, across the spectrum, as far as the patient journey is concerned, it's pretty complex. There are only like 5 steps that we've mentioned here, but they are the main ones. The journey starts when a physician, writes a prescription. So there is a big revenue leakage from when the prescription is written to when the prescription is filled. So BrightInsight works with our customers to kind of ensure there is, support. And I think my next presenter, Myndshft, is going to talk about prior authorization, and there is copay support. Once the patient is on the therapy, how does the patient know whether it's working, right? So the symptom management, hey, I'm feeling less fatigued, my vision is clear, I'm less itchy, I'm able to make progress in my day-to-day life. How do you track those symptoms and make the patient self-aware? In terms of medication, right, there are like complex medications which, apart from just taking a simple drug, there are complex injectables, right, which actually are a lot of our customer base. Guiding them step by step in terms of how do you consume that medication, record that medication, to some extent even titrate those medications like the GLP ones where you have to adjust and key in the right level of medication. So all that dose and medication help is needed for the patients. Most important thing, the next one, which is like adherence. How do you keep the patient on the treatment, right? So obviously it's good for the patient. It's also good for the pharma in terms of the revenue leakage that we spoke about. Because, a patient could be like, okay, I have anxiety, I can't inject these needles anymore, or I need support. So how do you create that support system between the patient and the care team? How do you provide things in the solution where you provide next best action, intelligent nudges, you provide ability to converse with your care team through in-app messaging or voice. So how do you have that patient experience so unique that the patient sticks to the therapy and they feel that they are treating themselves? And the last one is obviously the data and outcomes, which is, if you think about it, the data is relevant for the patient. The data is relevant for the care team. The care team needs to see real world data, right? Not like an X-ray only, or not like what medication it is, but what's going on a everyday basis. So that is needed by from the care team. But the main consumer of the data is the pharma. Today, like when we speak with bunch of marketing executives at the pharma company, in terms of once they've launched the therapy, what is it that they are seek about the adoption? And the best they have is claims data. Claims data could be from like 2 months, 3 months, but they need to see data in like real life, right? Like, what am I consuming, right? Is my patient population going to fall off in this particular country or this particular part of the country or part of the world? This therapy works better. What are the different conditions that the patients of this age group may have? So there is a lot of real world data that the pharma companies now should leverage in order to then even target population segment and do different things. I'll cover more about data in a bit. We do all this by a BrightInsight platform. So I guess we target customers who want to have multiple therapies, who want to standardize their launches of different apps and their different, say, PSP or care support programs on a common platform, right? No one wants to have multiple solutions, which unfortunately is the case today. So configurable apps, which have their defined user experience, which have internationalization support, right? So you don't need to create multiple apps. You can create one and roll out geographically, globally. Then how do you have integrations and device connectivities? So it could be your wearables, medical devices. It could be integration to healthcare systems, like my colleague at Reltio, Redox just mentioned. And then systems like Salesforce as well, right? How does your platform enable all those integrations? And then once all that data is there, how is that data secure? How is that data audited, right? How does the data capture every event that is going in the system? And how does that data get assimilated to produce and to showcase it to different personas and different applications? And most importantly, how is that data used to have different algorithms? So I think that's kind of essentially happens in the BrightInsight platform, obviously in a very secured and regulated manner, right? So we've launched our disease management product. It's there in the market for a bit. It consists of 3 parts of the solution. The mobile patient apps, I covered that. The care team portal, it could be, like I mentioned, a remote patient monitoring app, or it could be a PSP, patient support program. Here, it caters right from the physicians to the nurses, to case managers, to clinical coordinators, to coaches, in terms of how do you personalize care for each patient? How do you have alerts in the system so that, hey, the blood pressure is shooted up, or some vitals that you are tracking has gone out of range? How do you get that personalized service to those patients? So we support all of that through our care team portal. And obviously there is analytics. Apart from just basic demographics and feature utilization, we track a lot of enrollment and engagement in terms of once the patient is signed up, what is the curve of patients' next steps from enrollment to engagement? What kind of clinical outcomes you can derive from the system? So, for example, one of our studies showed that there are different vial sizes, like 5 ml, 10 ml, 15 ml, 20 ml. Which vial sizes is consumed the most? Do people like vials, or do people like syringes, pre-built syringes? So I think all that data is there. What is the adherence and retention of those patients on the system and on the platform, right? So there's a cohort analysis done that patients joining in the month of January, what % of this patient continue on the platform to Feb, March, April, May, June. So there is extensive analysis done, and now all this data is available to the pharma companies. So this has been pretty successful. This is a real case study. If you think about this is one of big biopharma's, CSL, who is into rare diseases. They started working with us on Hizentra, which is a subcutaneous injection for PI and CIPD patients, right? We launched the solution for them in few months. Typically, this takes in the industry multiple years. Once this product was launched, the adoption was good, even with very less marketing. And amongst those adoption, there were 70% or more people who continued on the therapy. So this was a great boost for the customer. And then the patients provided the feedback, and we provided the next generation of the apps within quarters, right? So I think that's how this journey happened. And then the customer spread this from US to Canada to South America to Japan, and now in the process to Europe. So this was a big global expansion. And not only the global expansion, then they went to their next drug, which is Hemgenix, which is actually the first ever FDA-approved gene therapy, one of the most expensive drugs out in the market, and that was launched as well. So I guess what this case study reveals is you don't need proliferation of multiple platforms for different therapies and across geography, right? You take a standardized platform approach and reap the benefits of economies of scale, right? So that's what this case study said. Now, I guess moving on to GenAI, we've been working with our customers. Our customers are obviously very particular in terms of what GenAI use cases they want to release, right, for the right reasons. We've done a ton of research with our customers. There's about 10 to 15 use cases we've identified, but we'll focus on three or four use cases for now. We've been working with Google We've done some workshops. We've have visibility into their roadmap. They have visibility into our roadmap. And together, we've identified for each of the products that we have, where would we embed GenAI, right? To the point what Sarita had said. So we are embedding it in our patient mobile apps to using this is powered by Gemini. And I'll actually show a demo of this, so I won't take much time here. The next one is MedLM use cases for care team, right? Again, for summarization and interrogation of the data. And then third is analytics dashboard, which we are using. We are actually starting to work with the Google Looker team so that actually the business users can interact with data rather than just static dashboards, which is kind of what they do today. So with this, I think we can play the demo.
The BrightInsight Care Team web portal, members of a patient's clinical care team can view and act on a wide range of data collected through the patient's companion mobile app. When a clinician reviews a patient's health record, they typically view their vitals, labs, medication intakes, and detailed visit notes, along with responses from health questionnaires. Traditionally, clinicians have to navigate through patient records multiple times each day to make informed decisions and personalize their patient care management. This is an essential exercise, but it's widely acknowledged to be extremely time-intensive. To help address this problem, BrightInsight recently introduced a generative AI assistant to summarize the patient's record and allow clinicians to ask questions interactively. This assistant is powered by Google's MedLM, which is fine-tuned for the healthcare industry and is an ideal choice for a clinician-facing application. As you can see, clinicians very quickly receive insights and answers about the patient's health record. They can dive deep into patient records without manually sifting through all the data. This significantly reduces the cognitive load for clinicians, allowing them to focus more on direct patient interactions and personalized care activities.
In the BrightInsight Patient Companion mobile app, patients can record and view their health data, track their medications, view educational materials, take health questionnaires, and so on. Companion apps typically include a set of approved educational materials which patients can use to learn about their condition and treatment. When patients have specific questions about their condition or want to learn more about treatment option, the traditional model is to browse through the relevant content to find what they're looking for. This is often an inefficient and therefore frustrating experience for patients. To help address this problem, BrightInsight includes a generative AI chatbot for patients to interactively query their educational content. This chatbot is powered by Google's Gemini Pro, and we've grounded it to only answer questions from an approved set of educational content for diabetic patients. Let's try it out. What are the main differences between type 1 and type 2? Because the chatbot is context-aware, it knows we're talking about diabetes and provides information gleaned from the approved content. Let's try another question. Are there different dietary recommendations for each type? The chatbot is aware of the patient's historical conversation and therefore supports a very natural interface for follow-up questions. This application of generative AI and patient companion apps helps reduce friction for patients and translates to a better overall patient experience.
Thank you. Okay. Transfer over to Tyler from Myndshft.
All right behind you. Thank you very much. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Tyler with Myndshft. I lead our product and our technology organizations, and we'll spend a little bit of time today talking about prior authorization and some of the changes that are coming to prior authorization from both PBMs and medical insurers, specifically around drugs, how they're being covered, what types of authorizations are required, and some of the changes that providers are going to be expected to comply with, and how pharma can help out and make that a little bit easier for them. So, awesome. So let's talk about the provider side a little bit first. So prior authorization is an incredibly inefficient process. It's super complex, especially on the medical side. Well, I should take a step back first. Myndshft, we automate authorizations for providers. So the majority of our customer base are HCPs. we have a handful of EHRs, specifically in the specialty medication space and home infusion space, that have our platforms integrated into their EHR. So the provider uses our platform to submit authorizations to the insurance, as well as get responses back from those authorizations, determine if it's even required or not required, and what data they need to submit. So that's what Myndshft does. So we take this really complex, these like 2.5 million unique combinations of these authorization rules across all of the different medical insurers, and manage that in one platform. Providers try to manage all of this manually in most cases because of the restrictions that they have on time and the ways that they manage the data around authorization. This typically ends up just being like a roll the dice and hope that my patient doesn't require an authorization, and if I get a denial, then I'll deal with it at that point, which obviously leads to delays downstream. So the complexity is really, really challenging. Authorizations, about 90% of authorizations across both medical and pharmacy authorizations are done manually. So this is in web portals, it's on the phone. In a lot of cases, an MD is getting on the phone with an LPN from the payer to try to explain why the patient needs the care that they need, why they need this drug, and give them additional data that they didn't even know that they needed to submit in the first place on the authorization. Authorizations are typically done in this portal-based workflow. An average provider is going to have credentials to about 30 different payer systems in order to submit data to them across their entire patient population. So it's pretty fragmented. And on average, a provider is going to spend up to about $130 managing this authorization process per patient. So an average provider will spend about 20% of their time, like a full business day every week, just submitting authorizations and understanding what's required to submit authorization and get coverage for their patient. On the patient side, the journey that a patient takes in order to ultimately get their medication, refill, and see success using their medication is really, really complex. So all the way from the very beginning, where you have to look at med reconciliation, all the way into coverage and affordability, we handle some of this stuff for our providers today, checking eligibility, what's my patient cost going to be, help them get into copay assistance programs if that's an element that they need. One of the elements at the writing of the prescription, about 60% of these authorizations that get identified are never even completed. And so ultimately what that means is a patient's either not getting their drug, or the pharmacy is changing, they're doing edits at the pharmacy side to change the patient to a generic, or they're moving them onto a different therapy, or the provider's changing them onto a different drug because those authorizations are either too complex or they're just not getting completed at all. So drugs that require authorizations typically result in about 10 days slower fill. So the patient's waiting, ultimately waiting to get their drug leads to abandonment, especially when it comes to time to refill. So even if a patient makes it to first fill, getting them to refill that drug when it requires authorization is pretty unlikely. It drops dramatically when those authorization requirements come into play. And this is not just because the authorization process takes a long time, but it's because reauthorizations have to happen. If a patient's been on a drug for a certain period of time, then the provider needs to get re-involved. Even if they wrote a script for a patient to take a drug for the next 12 months and they have enough refills, their insurance may require them to get another authorization halfway through, and then the provider doesn't even know that they need to take actions. So when only 40% of those authorizations are completed, then ultimately the pharmacy's either doing an edit, the patient's just abandoning treatment altogether, they're not getting onto the drug that they need. And the AMA would report that about 1/3 of all physicians are seeing serious adverse effects or even up to patient death as a result of authorization processes. 94% of providers will tell you that they have significant delays in patient care and getting patients the therapy that they need because of authorizations. So why is now the right time to even think about pharmacy authorizations and medical authorizations and what's going on there? Historically, about 70% of all specialty drugs have fallen underneath the patient's pharmacy benefit. So it's going to the PBM, it's going to Caremark, it's going through SureScripts or Cover My Meds in order to get those authorizations underway. The pharmacy is able to take action to prompt a provider to do something with the authorization. In the next 3 to 5 years, and this shift is, we're right kind of in the middle of this shift, about 75% of specialty drugs are going to fall underneath a patient's medical benefit or a combination of their medical and their pharmacy benefit. And so the implication here is that the process that a provider needs to go through in order to make sure a patient is covered for their drug is dramatically changing. And it takes significantly more time to manage this medical authorization process than it does on the pharmacy side. And so we have a platform that addresses kind of both the current and the future states of what the specialty drug landscape is going to look like, as well as all the wraparound services that come with specialty drugs. So imaging and so any kind of radiology, lab testing, all of those types of procedures as well. So GenAI is one of the tools that's enabling this shift to take place, and it enables us to service kind of both of these worlds. So medical policies are typically written in natural language for clinicians to read. They're not written for machines to understand. We take a lot of the tools in Vertex AI, so using MedPalm, which was talked about earlier, using Gemini, and we even pull in some like third-party LLMs outside of the Google ecosystem into Vertex AI in order to turn these documents into a structured machine executable policy. And this is really helpful because it means that you're not making clinical decisions based upon the output of one of these large language models that potentially can hallucinate or have implications for patient care. You want to take all of this kind of dynamic components of these LLMs and move them up front in the process so that you have something that's executable every single time that's more rules-based. So we're using generative AI there. The other piece here is a lot of this data is already in the patient's or the provider's EMR. They just don't have the ability to leverage it because it's in natural language, and the clinicians are not spending the time, nor did they have the time, to put all of this data into specific discrete fields within their EMR so that it can just be executed in real time. So taking these LLMs, extracting that data out of the EHR, Redox talked about this a little bit earlier. That's a pretty significant advancement that's happened in the last year and a half that really drives some additional efficiencies for the provider here. And then CMS released just in the last 6 months, has released some EPA guidelines on the medical side that's going to push providers and payers to leverage FHIR-based APIs for handling the authorization process between or for medical authorizations. So this is a big step forward. It's not quite as far as the ecosystem already is on the pharmacy side. So NCPDP has done a pretty good job of getting this 4-part script standard in place to handle authorizations from a pharmacy perspective. The medical world is lagging significantly behind. This will be a good step forward, but it still is going to require getting the data into these formats that are required, and so that's where a lot of these other pieces come into play. So what does Myndshft do? So Myndshft uses what we call collective healthcare intelligence. We take all of the different pieces of information from the provider's EMR, from the medical policies from the payer, even forms or sites that need to be filled out as a part of the authorization submission process. We aggregate all of that together so that we can tell a provider, here's what data you need to submit. You do need to submit an authorization for this drug. Here's how the authorization is going to get submitted. And then we handle all of that integration for them. So instead of connecting to about 30 different sites, they connect to the Myndshft platform, either through their EMR, or we have a standalone portal that they can use, and they'll get all of that data to us. We handle the interfacing to the payers on their behalf to get all of that data submitted, and ultimately get authorizations back significantly faster. So typically, specialty medication authorizations on average will take somewhere between like 10 and 14 days for a provider to get an authorization back. The median time of getting an authorization response from I identified I need an auth, to I have an approval for my patient so that they can go ahead to the pharmacy and pick up their drug or show up to an infusion clinic and get their infusion, however they're getting their therapy, is about 72 hours using our platform. So significantly faster. That means patients are less likely to abandon. It means that they're getting the drug that they need at the time that they need it, and the patient's getting on the drug that was actually prescribed initially and not getting switched to some other therapy because it's easier or there's another alternative for them. So we've been doing this since about 2018. There's been a handful of evolutions in the platform as we've scaled from 2018 here into 2024. But these are some results from a large infusion care provider, specialty infusion care provider, who they ended up saving, with about $800,000 spend with Myndshft, ended up saving about $22 million, both in cost for lost patients, increase in the number of new patients that they can take on because they were using our platform. So they had fewer claims in suspense, which means they're getting paid on the patients that they're actually servicing. They're able to increase the patient population that they're servicing and ultimately use fewer people in order to do that. So pretty significant impact here when you use a platform like the Myndshft platform. So these are some of the logos that we work with. So some provider groups, pharma, hospital, health systems. One of the things that has happened just in the last few weeks with Myndshft is Myndshft has joined the Dr. First family. So some of you guys are probably familiar with Dr. First. They work with both pharma, on the pharma side for patient communications, and also with hospital and health systems on e-prescribing. That about 1 in 4 prescriptions in the US flow through this platform. And so we have a pretty wide reach. Not everybody up here is using us for authorizations, but we're touching some component of all of these logos' business today and making a pretty big impact. So I will be hanging out afterwards, so please come and find me if you've got questions about authorizations and patient access. And I'm going to hand the baton over to Elemental Cognition. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Hi, good afternoon. So my name is Adi Kalyanpur. I'm the VP of R&D at Elemental Cognition. And I'm here to talk about how pharma companies and biotechs are using Elemental Cognition's GenAI solutions to advance life science research and development. And specifically, I'm going to talk about the use case of finding targets for preclinical drug development. So a bit of background about the company, Elemental Cognition, or EC. So EC is an AI-first technology startup. We've been around 7 years now. Our mission statement is to scale expert-level decision-making using our AI that does complex logical reasoning. And we have a deep R&D foundation. We have many experts, deep AI expertise. We have people who worked in AI for 20 plus years. And our CEO and founder is Dr. David Ferrucci, who was the creator of the IBM Watson system that won Jeopardy. And we have several researchers from the original IBM Watson team, including myself at EC. And we've hired a lot of world-class talent, not just in NLP, natural language processing, machine learning, but also in formal knowledge representation and reasoning. And the reason is because we believe that an AI system that can tackle hard problems, business problems, that require a high amount of accuracy and consistency and reliability is one that can combine the best of neural systems, statistical systems like large language models, with symbolic reasoning systems. And we have our own proprietary symbolic reasoning engine, and that sits in between LLMs that we fine-tuned in sort of a neurosymbolic architecture. And we use this to deploy enterprise AI applications at scale. And here are some of the accolades that we've received. I should point out that the first two below, from Best in Business and BI, are in the healthcare and life science category. And Dave Ferrucci was nominated as one of the top 10 people in AI for healthcare. So the specific problem I'm going to talk about is drug repurposing research or drug discovery research. And as many of you know, the process of developing a drug is a pretty complicated multi-stage pipeline where the first phase is where you do the research to figure out what drug to develop. And this is a very important step because decisions you make here have a knock-on effect later on in the process. And you want to be sure you're making well-informed decisions upfront so you don't waste time and money later on. And we've partnered with biotechs, with pharma companies, and also with universities doing this. So one of our partners is UPenn, and that's a quote from Dr. Enduka, who leads the Brain Tumor Center there. And at a high level, the point is there's still a lot of headroom for improving the research process. It's still very slow, very inefficient, and not very scalable. And there's multiple reasons for this. One is that often when the researcher is exploring a particular hypothesis, the answer is not in one single document. It's spread across different data sets. Riju made this point earlier as well. Often the information may be buried in unstructured data. And so you really need to search across different data sets, different types of data, in order to connect the dots and come up with the answer. The second thing is research is more than just using search tools, right? So a researcher is doing a lot of critical thinking, reasoning. They're analyzing hypotheses. They're validating claims. They're looking for evidence. They're comparing different hypotheses. And so our solution really targets the entire research process, not just the search piece. And finally, it's still, by and large, very manual, a lot of reading through lots of documents or looking at databases. And so what we've tried to do is help automate that process and scale it out. So the way we've tackled that problem is using our AI technology. And there are 4 ways in which we've done this. One is helping integrate unstructured and structured data. So this is where we use fine-tuned LLMs for pulling out knowledge from unstructured sources, connecting it with structured sources, and producing sort of one unified knowledge model that you can query. Second thing is we have models. When you're looking for evidence, we automatically look for both supporting as well as refuting evidence. The idea here is to give you a very comprehensive view of the problem space, so you're not biased. And we always track provenance. So you have links to the original data as well, which is very important for reliability, for trust. And speaking of trust, as many of you know, if you're using a pure GenAI solution, just using an LLM, there are issues with hallucinations. We've overcome that using RAG, which many of you probably are familiar with, and adding layers on top of RAG using our logical reasoning engine to make sure that the claims are valid, that that everything is precise, and you have confidence that the result is correct. And finally, I'm going to show you ways in which we help researchers create these multi-step templates. So think of these as like a very general pattern matching query that you write it once, and you can use it for multiple use cases. And this is one way in which you can really automate and scale out your research process while maintaining the quality. And the key point of all this is from using this technology, what we've managed to do is dramatically accelerate the time it takes to do the research by 50 to 100 times. So research that was taking months to do can now be done in a matter of weeks or in some cases days using our technology. And this means you can bring the drug to market faster and so on. OK, so this is a very high-level solution architecture diagram. So we have our drug repurposing research engine that uses our neurosymbolic technology, that uses, like I mentioned earlier, fine-tuned LLMs along with our reasoning engine. And this sits on top of the Google Cloud Platform, which we leverage a lot. We use several technologies in GCP. We use Kubernetes for our DevOps. We use the Vertex AI library, both for fine-tuning our models and testing them and deploying them. And finally, we use BigQuery also for storing and querying large amounts of structured data. I should emphasize the beauty of using Vertex AI is something that Riju and Sarita mentioned earlier. It's this beautiful horizontal platform for testing out lots of different models. We use both Google models as well as open source models. And I should give a shout out to the Gemma 2 billion parameter model that Sarita mentioned, because it's a lightweight model that we've managed to fine tune using high quality data for specific NLP tasks, and it works really well. It's 100 times smaller than ChatGPT, but yet it works very well if you fine tune it and specialize it for a given task. And what GCP has let us do is really boost our technology and make it accessible in 2 different ways. One is you can buy a product that we've built on top of our platform called Cora. And I'm going to show you a demo of that later on. Cora is a collaborative research assistant. And it's available today in the Google Cloud Marketplace. There's a free trial. You can test it out, see if you like it, and if you do, you can buy it. And there are the pharma companies who actually have their own systems and UIs, and they want to be able to just integrate APIs. So we have that option as well, where you can just use our platform APIs to add specific functionality into your stack. One other thing I should point out is available both as a SaaS solution as well as an on-prem option as well. So before I show you a demo of Cora, I'm just going to talk very quickly about some of the platform APIs that we have. And at a high level, we think of it as RAG plus, so we're enhancing the retrieval augmented generation approach. There's 3 classes of APIs, and I'm going to talk on each of them in the next few slides. The main advantage of using our APIs is, A, you never need to share your data with third-party LLMs. Like I mentioned earlier, we also have an on-prem option, so you can just have everything secure in your enterprise. B, you can get really precise, correct answers using our reasoning engine, as opposed to using the LLM to do reasoning. And we track provenance, and so you have evidence for all your answers, so there's transparency. And thirdly, we have this is where we use our LLM technology to integrate structured and unstructured data. So digging into that a little bit, so on the retrieval front, so we go beyond just text retrieval, like finding textual evidence. We think of it in terms of knowledge retrieval. So what we're doing here is we have an ontology induction pipeline that works out of the box in the medical domain and pulls out from unstructured text, from medical articles and so on, salient concepts, relationships, and connects them up in one unified ontology. And so, so here's an example where a person is doing a query for what cytokines cause symptoms in RA. That natural language query is converted into a structured query and then issued against our induced ontology to get highly precise results. And when we pull out these concepts, we also arrange them in a hierarchy, so the researchers can generalize and specialize these concepts as well. And the main thing is this is available without any manual data required, without any fine-tuning required. It's available out of the box because we've customized it for the medical domain already. And I should point out, so here are some of the data sets we have available in Cora, and you can see there's a mix of unstructured data sets like PubMed, as well as databases like UniProt. On the synthesis front, so these are a class of APIs that are all about aggregating information from multiple places, synthesizing it, and producing a concise answer with valid citations. So nothing is hallucinated here. And this is where we use our evidence classifier to classify supporting and refuting evidence, so you get a fully balanced answer. We also have a topic summarizer where the idea is you can get diversity of opinions. So we have a topic model to categorize your evidence based on topic and then produce summaries per topic. And here's an example of an answer that we generate with accurate evidence. And finally, the cherry on top is our reasoning engine. This is where we have a formal interactive reasoning engine that you can use to do very precise queries, including these complicated queries. And I'm going to show you a demo of that. You could think of this as like a graph query with lots of reasoning to connect the dots, and the answers are correct. And again, here we have a pointer to the evidence as well. So with that, I'm going to jump to the demo of our tool. So this is the Cora UI. And if you can pause it right here, I'll just quickly talk about this UI. So the main panel here is a multi-step research template that a scientist created. And the scientist was interested in looking for a connection between a disease and a kinase inhibitor. And what they described was a very general sort of skeleton for ways by which a disease and a kinase inhibitor might be involved in the pathogenesis of a disease. So these relationships are pretty general. Diseases affecting cells that activate pathways that induce cytokines, and the kinase inhibitor blocks that cytokine. And I should also mention that the scientists can use our AI to induce this template. So they're not starting from scratch. We are inducing the key relationships in the corpus, and then they can tweak it and create this template. And once they define this template once, they can use it for multiple diseases and multiple kinase inhibitors. So if you can, and one other thing, on the left-hand side, these concepts that you see here, specific instances of diseases and symptoms, this is all automatically induced from the content, right? And we induce the concepts along in a hierarchy as well. So now if you can resume. So what's going to happen here is the researcher is now going to specialize this template for a particular disease, rheumatoid arthritis. And then they're going to go and pick a specific kinase inhibitor as well. IRAK4 is the particular inhibitor. And you can see here, like the moment you pick an inhibitor like IRAK4, this list of cytokines also gets updated. This is contextualized to those cytokines that are blocked by IRAK4. Now the researcher clicks Explore Solutions, and at that point, the system issues this query. This basically executes this entire model and comes back with bindings for each concept in this template. And all this happened in a matter of a few seconds, right? So if you can pause, I'll tell you where to pause. No, a little bit ahead, sorry. Yeah, if you can pause here. So what you can see here is the system executed this model, came back with answers for cells, pathways, cytokines, and symptoms. And for each edge in this model, you can click on the relationship and get evidence for that particular relationship. So in this case, this is showing you IRAK4 is blocking specific cytokines in the context of this entire pathway. And the evidence here you can see is supporting evidence, but we also have a tab for refuting evidence. And if you can resume. And the idea is that the user can do this for every step in the graph, right? They can get like supporting and refuting evidence and really understand whether that, understand more deeply the causal mechanism behind each of these relationships. And finally, when they click on solution summary, this is where we use our synthesis APIs to kind of concisely summarize all the graph findings in one research report, where you have each of the claims with their supporting and refuting evidence and a pointer to the source that you can go and verify. And then you can export this report, share it with other users, and so on. And so you can see how a process of starting with an hypothesis and going to the research report at the end, which normally would take weeks to do because you had to manually go and answer questions for each of those links in the graph, read the papers, pull out the information, connect the dots. All that could happen in a matter of minutes given this template. Yeah, so this is the last slide. So I just leave you with this. So we've partnered with Google Cloud using our deep expertise in LLMs that we fine-tuned and our own proprietary reasoning engine to deliver GenAI solutions where the main emphasis is on bringing drugs to market faster and boosting the preclinical trial research phase. And here are some testimonials from our existing users. And if you're interested, you could scan that QR code and request a free trial as well. And I'll be around if you want to see a demo of the technology. I'd love to do that. Thank you.
I don't know if that's a good sign for me, a glass breaker as I walk up. I didn't drop it. Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Haas. I am from FormBio. I head up product management for our platform, as well as partnerships, two of probably 4 or 5 hats that I wear. Before I jump in too deeply, first I'll put a mission statement up there, and I'll talk around that. So quick show of hands. Who's read an article around de-extincting the woolly mammoth? All right, you likely read an article about a company called Colossal Biosciences, which is where we were incubated. Their goal is de-extinction. It's not our goal, although we are their reference platform that was developed internally for everything they do around synthetic biology. And you'll understand why that's important as I get into it when I start talking about cell and gene therapy, because that makes heavy use of synthetic biology to deliver those therapeutics to the market. So FormBio, incubated inside Colossal, multi-omics platform natively built on Google Cloud, and we were spun out so that we could serve other industries. As part of that process, we were engaged our data science team with some gene therapy companies who were having struggles with manufacturing and optimizing their drugs and bringing those to market. So we kind of pivoted. We still have the multi-omics platform. We definitely are in the market for that, on the market, GCP marketplace. But then we started focusing on this gap in this drug manufacturing process, which is heavy use in early stage drug development, right? AlphaFold, Google's leading that. Lots of other algorithms, AI-powered algorithms in drug discovery, early stage. And then lots in clinical and commercialization. But not a lot in the lead up to that IND filing to the FDA. So that's where you would do things like optimizing the drug and figuring out how you're going to manufacture that. So we've kind of been filling what we're calling this contract computational organizational role, similar to how you would interact with a CRO or a CDMO for outsourcing some of the research and drug manufacturing process. We're the in silico partner, full service partner to help these companies optimize the drug and accelerate their path to IND. Work with a broad set, this is not an entire suite of or logos of customers, but lots of leaders in the cell and gene therapeutic area. Partnerships, Google is our prime partner. We are the reference platform for their multi-omics suite. We also have a research collaboration with the Google Health and Google Research team. So if you know Andrew Carroll and his group, we have reference implementations of all of their DeepX workflows on the platform. So deep variant, like Sarita showed earlier, deep somatic, deep trio, all of those. We also are the reference next generation sequencing platform for PacBio, which is in the gene therapy space. There, even though Illumina, that's the big sequencing device manufacturer. PacBio's trying to follow them and is big in the gene therapy space because of their ability to do high throughput reads. The problem that they have with their customers is the next step of analyzing that data that's being produced from their sequencing devices, and that's where they bring us in. And then NVIDIA and then Ginkgo. Ginkgo is a newer partner for us, and we are a go-to for them for AAV gene therapy design and development in their Foundry product. Oh, and not to leave out our very important academic partners, we have a broad suite of them. We work with them across synthetic biology. George Church is an investor in Colossal. He's, if you don't know George Church, he's a godfather of genetics, one of them. And his lab at Harvard has done a lot of research in that realm. That's where the woolly mammoth actually came from. And he's an investor and founder of Colossal, and then with us as well. And then a broad set of other academic partners. I'll call out UT Southwestern, since they have a lab that does a lot of advanced research in gene therapies. And we work closely with them in a research collaboration to help bring our product to market. All right, so what is the problem? One problem area we're trying to solve, the big one. Gene therapies, I guess another question. Who's read articles around, the $1 million dose drug or $2 million dose drug, right? So that's generally going to be one of these cellular gene therapy. You're talking about rare diseases in a lot of cases, but these therapeutics have the capability of almost effectively curing the person of the disease with a single dose or just limited number of doses. I was reading an article yesterday about a gene editing therapy that is in trials right now for curing inherited retinal degeneration. And in the test patients that are involved in that, after one dose, they were able to see things they've never been able to see because it's effectively flipping out the defective gene for a corrected gene so they can actually start seeing things. That's what we're talking about. That's the impacts on humans that gene therapies could have. The problem is they're really hard to manufacture. They're really hard to design and manufacture. That's why you have these $1 million, $2 million, $3 million dose drugs. Is you can't get that many doses out of a manufacturing run because of how difficult this is. And here's just an example. Not example. This is the process of bringing a drug to market. Early on in research, you're all really focused. If you're in a drug development company, focused on efficacy and safety of the drug. You're not really thinking about manufacturing. You're thinking about how I'm going to get into clinical trials. That path to IND, that can take you 2 to 4 years. And you probably aren't even thinking about manufacturability in this early stage, which is likely where you need to be so that you can figure out how am I going to actually bring this drug to market. And why is that? Well, there's all sorts of things to consider, from the packaging that you want to put the therapy into to deliver it into the human body, to understanding and reducing the number of secondary and tertiary formations that can happen in the drug, such as CPG islands, and also reducing things like truncations, and all of that can reduce the amount of doses you can get out of a manufacturing run. And if you think about how many combinations you could have, you're in the hundreds of millions. So it's a perfect use case for AI and generative AI. It is the example of what you'd want to use AI for. And this is where we come in with one of our products, our flagship product we call FormSight AI, which I'll talk more about. And I can talk to you about the science behind it. I'll get in a little bit to that, but the key takeaway here is really we're really shortening the path to IND which is going to give the drug manufacturer potentially years more time in market under patent. So that we are talking just direct bottom line revenue as a result of leveraging an AI product like we have to quickly get to IND filing and then bring it to market. So with FormSight AI and our services engagement, we're really just trying to develop or help customers design and manufacture a better drug product that is safer, more effective, and more manufacturable. All right, so let's get into a little more details. So our platform, I'll get more about the platform, but you can see kind of the core of it there. Modern and advanced bioinformatics and AI. One really big differentiator we think we bring to the market is a lot of advanced scientific expertise that aligns really nicely with their counterparts at our customers who are doing the vector design, process development, manufacturing, scale up. So like I said, on the platform itself, natively built on GCP. Multi-tenant SaaS, although depending on how you want to deploy that, there's other ways that it can be deployed, but think of us as in that vein. On top of that, we built a life sciences data core. So everyone struggles with data management, no different in the life sciences space. So we've built this data core to really track provenance and metadata and everything else you need to around your data sets that you're going to use to do bioinformatics or bring drug products to market. Core functionality on top of that is data management. Again, just helping you all organize your data better, track it, understand what it's being processed with. Workflow execution. So we've developed we like to say we've GUIfied bioinformatics. So a lot of times in bioinformatics, you're relying on a very limited team, the bioinformaticians. Everything kind of funnels through them. They develop and run the workflows for the scientists, and it can take days, weeks to get results. So we've done this point-and-click GUIfied bioinformatics workflow execution engine that is available to both bioinformaticians, the power users, as well as to the scientists who really just want to be in the lab doing their analysis versus trying to be a bioinformatician on top of things. Data visualization, we were trying to really get you straight to the insights you need versus having to take the data out and do it in another tool. You can take the data, it's your data, so it's available to export, bring it into whatever preferred tool you want, but we really are trying to do a lot of embedded visualizations to get you to the insights you need, including custom and hosted applications. Two big ones that are really used often in the scientific realm are RStudio and Jupyter Lab. So we've managed hosted versions of those and other common scientific tools. And then research collaboration. Scientists love to share information with all of their peers. We're trying to make it easy for them to do that. Just for a little bit more underneath the scenes in Google Cloud, we're using the best-in-class technology they have in BigQuery, Vertex AI, Batch, which is their HPC, managed HPC execution API for processing all the data and the workflows. All right, so what are some of the solutions we have leading up to FormSight AI? FormSight AI might not be the place you start with us. One thing we literally just launched earlier today, is in silico assays. So one thing that is cumbersome in that early drug development process is wet lab assays. Can take weeks to do, so long turnaround times. We're trying to give you a computational equivalent to some of those that we are calling in silico assays. So within a day, you can upload a vector for a drug you're designing and process it through various in silico assays, get quick answers and use those answers to give you insight into what experiments you actually want to run in the wet lab before doing it straight out of the gate. Vector Flow, which is a synthetic biology vector management platform. If I have time, I have a short video I can show about that. That's really just to help them organize their data. It's a data management platform focused on synthetic biology and drug development so that you can understand all the candidate drugs you have in your queue, what's the lead candidate, what are ones that are failed, what are the ones that are in process and could become a lead, and then managing that entire experience from an executive view on down to a researcher in the lab. And then FormSight AI, our flagship product, which is a proprietary large language model that I'll talk a bit more about. So, as we were developing FormSight AI, the one big thing we wanted to do is make sure that we had a very robust data set. So we believe we have the biggest sequencing data set in the world that we use to train our model against. It's about 3 trillion DNA sequences that we've gotten from lots of public resources, NCBI, GenBank, the Human Protein Atlas, proprietary data that we've created, also our own wet lab validation data that we've generated to train our base model. And then we have task-specific models on top of that that are used to actually generate the results that come from FormSight AI to allow customers to make decisions on how to design and optimize their drug. So really, if you think about the process of doing all this testing, we're fitting that bottom area. We're really accelerating the whole iterative cycle that you do through the preclinical evaluation before you want to go into clinical trials, which again speeds up that delivery to, or that path to your IND with the FDA. Couple case studies, real quick case studies. Solid Biosciences is one of our customers, and they started with us down the path of the multi-omics suite. They wanted a bioinformatics platform. And as we started engaging with them through our partner PacBio, we started seeing that they also are having this gene therapy development and optimization problem. So we started bringing in our data science team and our FormSight AI product to help them optimize initially a couple of their indications, a couple of their gene therapy drugs. And now they are invested in moving forward with us across lots of drugs that they want to bring to market faster through us. And then an unnamed gene therapy company that this was actually the first customer we started working with FormSight. This is who we developed the model for. They had a go-to-market plan where they had the same manufacturing process for every one of their drugs. When they would insert the drug to go through the manufacturing process, they were never sure what they'd get out. They didn't know how many doses they'd get. They didn't know the potency of it. They didn't know how toxic it was. And they could have just wildly different results. And they just didn't know why. So when they came to us, they asked the question to our data science team, can you help us solve this problem? And that's what FormSight AI came from, is the engagement with them to help them understand why a fixed manufacturing process had different results across indications. And I think I have my video now, and I have a minute left, so maybe I won't play the whole thing.
Welcome to VectorFlow. This is FormBio's product that's intended to be used for combining process management for vector development and specific apps and machine learning tools to create the safest therapeutics as quickly as possible from a customer's existing gene of interest or target therapeutic. So when you land on an indications page, what you'll see is organization by tissue type, so neuromuscular in this case, or cardiac in the example below. And these are the lists of indications that are intended to show what your target genes are for vectors in development and where they are along the process of development from research and discovery phase through preclinical to IND submission. The other information that can be found on this first dashboard page is the number of vectors for each indication that are being evaluated and where they are in their phase of development. And the other thing, and the most important thing, is we show how many lead candidates there are at each indication. So when we click on one of these indications, this is an entirely made up disease, by the way, and gene of interest, what we'll see is the number of candidates and all of them listed out, what stage they're in, what the next stage is, when they were created, and when they were last updated. And we have a status indicator to show what your lead vector is, and others that are contenders, which may mean something like the second backup before going into in vitro studies, or one where we've paused because, for example, perhaps we get a tox signal or we do not get enough titer in early stage production. So this page gives you a snapshot view of all of the candidate vectors that you have and where they are in the process. When we click on one of these, we go to a vector inventory page. The vector inventory page is a much more detailed view. It allows you to filter by status. You can filter by stage of development. Here, the stages of development that we have identified are the design stage. This is where you may change the regulatory elements or the backbone or some other part of the vector design. We have an optimized phase, which is where FormBio's deep learning technology comes in to optimize that coding region for manufacturability and safety and swap out for optimal regulatory cassette elements. We have an in vitro stage, which is where you're going to do your proof of concept, you're going to do IND enabling studies and all of that in test tubes, in vivo, which is going to be all of our animal studies. And then we've got a placeholder sort of GMP manufacturing for the last of the IND prep before going into the clinic.
All right, thank you, everyone. Well, leave on that for a second. If you want to scan that, that's to learn more. But I appreciate your time and your attention. And now I get the pleasure of introducing Richard Reyes from Sorcero.
Thank you, Chris. So I think today we're seeing a real trend in that life sciences has been looking for insights. It's been looking for insights in the preclinical stage. It's been looking for insights around the patient digital journey, around that pathway. Here at Sorcero, and I'm the Chief Commercial and co-founder here at Sorcero, I'm very excited to be here and present with the team. We're focused on illuminating actionable insights from complex medical data. That's our focus at Sorcero. And we start in the early stage of medical to commercial because we've uncovered a huge challenge in what is happening in life sciences, particularly over the next 5 years. Currently, 90% of new therapeutics that are coming to stage, and we are seeing the highest volume of therapeutics we've ever seen in the history of the life sciences industry. The high watermark is the FDA has never approved more than 59 drugs in a single year. We have over 1,100 phase 3 clinical trials and molecules today, of which typically 62% have been advanced into a drug or a therapeutic. The therapeutics we are seeing today, if you see this, 90% of them are focused on specialized therapies. Those are genetic targeting, like you've just seen. You see this focused on highly specialized and complex disease. The problem is personalized and precision medicine also requires personalized and precision engagement with HCPs and patients. And today, the current life sciences medical and commercial model is failing to deliver the personalized engagement required to target and reach those populations with a highly scientific evidence story and insights that's nimble enough to respond to a rapidly changing field. The Sorcero AI platform enables the data, the workflow, and the analytics to power personalized HCP and patient engagement. We, just like many other companies you've seen, we bring together the data and ingest it and enrich it, but our focus has been on not just the structured data, which is key, but the vast volume of unstructured data that has much of the patient, scientific, clinical, and even often the notes and other information that is rapidly uncovering how a drug is being used, both in the real world, post-approval, and how it's being used to treat new conditions, adjacent new patient populations, and much, much more. We transform that medical data into intelligence, true intelligence on a global scale by building a unified evidence base. This is something that has been a very static process in life sciences. If anyone's ever worked here on a scientific communications platform, it's a little bit of a misnomer when you find out that most companies it's still a PDF. Happens once a year. It doesn't get updated as new evidence, new studies, new things are coming out around how your drugs are being used. For this new format of highly targeted therapies, we're really struggling to basically do the insight discovery on a faster pace, to personalize the engagement around that data with the key opinion leaders and healthcare providers that are driving the medical adoption of your drug and are the essential glue to the patients that you are serving. And they are expecting a lot more. Why? A lot of it's because of Google. Let's be honest. People are going in, they've gone in, they've expected from consumer and AI experiences data at their fingertips. They're not ready to wait 2-3 weeks for those answers or to have a generic response when the data they need is about them, their patients' needs, and more. So with Sorcero, we drive those life science workflows. And the last thing is we generate those insights, but also the content itself. We've seen a lot of analytics today. The fact is that generative AI is creating a revolution in content in both speed, quality, and cost. Life sciences is still one of the biggest drivers and generators of content in the world, particularly across scientific medical publications, but also commercial content and more. So how do we do this? First, we unite the most complete specialized life sciences data stack and AI ecosystem. Now you're seeing a lot of sources here that are a little bit different. There's a huge focus on EHRs, EMRs in this space. That is critical. But the fact is that in life sciences, we're finding that when you go far beyond the CRM, you have interactions with the healthcare provider and the KOL that is far beyond that. We are plugging into the CRM and the notes, so you not just can find the BI on how many conversations you had. It's common, you see people have Tableau, they'll have Power BI, they'll have Looker. They'll be able to see that, yes, you had 440,000 emails sent out, you had 34,000 meetings booked, and the average call time was 23 minutes and 47 seconds for your medical team as you met with your KOLs and HCPs. But what did they talk about? What was the trending topic in the second week of October on safety? What on efficacy changed the conversation? That has been something that life sciences has only been able to analyze through very painfully slow analysis, because this has been completely unstructured. This has been the realm of manual analytics. There's a shadow IT spend of manual analytics in life sciences that's $62 billion, just for clarity on this. And much of this data is scattered across a vertical SaaS ecosystem, as well as on internal files, whether that's spreadsheets, PowerPoints, PDFs, documents, Excels. But also there are some data sets here that are absolutely essential to link here. With the Sorcero ecosystem, we've got some of our data ecosystem partners in the audience here, like the Springer Nature or USDM. We have over 250 million scientific publications on our platform. We have an identity graph of over 90 million authors and HCPs. We have over 1.6 billion citations with the deep learning analysis on whether it agrees or contrasts with that data. But we link that to your internal data and your second-party license data, linking together the data that you've seen across that these companies are focused on, whether that's claims, clinical trial, internal CRM, medical inquiries, call centers, your advisory boards, whether it's actually a transcript of in-person or it's a virtual asynchronous, like from within 3 and more. We bring together the AI models to sync this, and that builds the AI ecosystem, and that's all built on that Vertex AI capability and BigQuery that Google Cloud has brought that is revolutionary in this space. We deliver with this global real-time life sciences customer intelligence. This has never happened before. Everything in life sciences customer intelligence-wise has been siloed and has struggled to understand how their HCPs, their KOLs, and the patients and patient caregivers are intersecting with their drug, their therapeutic, or their therapeutic area on a global basis. Many of the data sources we've seen today also end at the water's edge. If you're looking at a lot of the claims data, it's revolutionized how we target the United States. But if you leave the US, often there's no data to be had like that. Instead, you have to dip back into your CRM, your medical inquiry systems, global publications, medical congresses, the unstructured data that has been all done by hand. And we sync this together so you can have true global customer intelligence that doesn't just answer descriptive analytics of the what, but can actually answer the why. That allows us to generate the reports that people have relied on that used to take 9 months or more and only put together by PhDs and MDs and other often internal teams or services, and actually generate that with the generative AI. We do this with things like the Sorcero Instant Insights engine. This is this is basically the advanced Gemini LLM with RAG that also has a high fidelity model deployment. We enrich the data coming in, aligning this with the medical themes, topics, and data, and that allows us to actually featureize and allows us to do multi-hop reasoning. Within our system, we're able to take in that data and actually enrich novel metadata of 15 million biomedical concepts. And it's not just the proteins and the genetic targets, although we have many of those. It's the stuff that also matters in commercial. Is it HEOR data related? Is it safety related? Is it access related? Is it mechanism of action related? This is the stuff that isn't in scientific data, but is absolutely essential to the life sciences company. We use this GenAI to analyze that medical data across all of that 360 view. Internal first-party data, second-party license data, whether it's an IQVIA or Aviva or Definitive, any of those systems that you've used, along with the entire scientific landscape. Publications, trials, data, and more. This allows you to get clear answers from complex medical and product questions real time that would take days to literally months to answer, that tells you exactly that actually can answer exactly this. We were very excited. We were selected as the most innovative company in the world, under 200 employees, for the pushing out of some of this AI, as well as the generated content that we'll share you about in just a second. Second, we're actually finding that sentiment has been a solved problem in other industries. This is something that has transformed e-commerce. I don't know how many people in this room have ever attempted to use an off-the-shelf sentiment model in life sciences, but it fails. It hasn't worked. And that's again because the fact is that the AI models, you take a statement like this and you say a good thing, you say a bad thing, this would standard sentiment come back and say this is neutral. What we've introduced is, with that ability to do medical topics at scale, what is called medical topic sentiment polarity. Polarity sentiment. This allows you to actually link the sentiment to the specific attributes of your products that is absolutely essential, that we've never had the granularity at scale or the rigor to understand how KOLs, HCPs, or even patients are perceiving your drug. So you can get sentiment on things like efficacy, safety, mechanism of action. And this allows you to build, for the first time, a profile of your HCPs, your key stakeholders, and whether they are actually a detractor on efficacy, but they actually believe they're an advocate on safety. And maybe they're neutral on access. This gives, for the first time, the ability for medical teams, market access teams, and commercial teams to have true personas based on the actual elements longitudinally of how your drug is being perceived. And this can drive how you release your data, how you drive your evidence, how you personalize your engagement with these people to completely transform how your therapeutics are used and where your challenges are facing. In the real world, I'll give you an example. There is a leading immuno-oncology product in the breast cancer space. It is incredibly effective. Survival on it is 91%. If you're not on it, it's 13%. But 32% of patients were churning in the first month. It shows up in your BI, it shows up in your scripts, it shows up in your claims data. But why? The answer is very rapidly uncovered is because people did not believe it was a safe product. And the label had indications of elevated lab results. Those lab results were elevated at a level that if you did not have guidance, you believed that it would cause liver death. In fact, if you poke through all of that evidence and you go to your digital scientific platform, it actually is transient and elevated and declines at a mappable rate. You put that evidence, and in fact, those patients can be kept on it with just some careful monitoring, and you could retain all of those patients, which both transforms patient outcomes and survival, as well as the performance of your therapeutic over time. That is the complex disease guidance that we need for these precision and genetic targeted molecules and medicines. This also is aligned and powered by our intelligent medical themes. This allows you to find the themes beyond the specific entity recognition, but LLM-powered theming that could do safety signals, efficacy signals, and the concepts. Sorry, it's a little blurry on this very large screen. That actually can drive across any data source that you're working on, structured or unstructured, to change how you can see what is trending in your data, where you can find signal, and how you can actually engage with your HCPs, your KOLs, your patients to find the true elements of that interaction with your people. This allows you, though, to do something that can transform your function. So we have the Sorcero suite, which sits on top of the Sorcero AI platform. It has all these capabilities in it. With this, we're delivering what McKinsey said was the most important function in medical, which is a competitive intelligence capability that can scan externally generated data, we also do internal, via automated intelligence that feeds back into those medical strategies to guide your therapeutics to success. And that is how, with the Sorcero MIM platform, we uncover 300% more insights. And we're very excited. I wasn't sure that this was going to happen, that I would get approval, but we had a press release this morning that our Sorcero PLS, our plain language summary solution, has set the new benchmark for patient-accessible generated content globally. We published these results with UCB and our partner and speaker you'll see, Humanity, a little later. And what it allows is to take the readability of literature and the published results of clinical trials from less than 1% of the population to over 51% of the population at scale with a near zero hallucination. It's called a high fidelity stack, as John Petrakis said, as with higher performance and quality in a single blinded study that we did by patients, physicians, and medical writers themselves that showed better quality using Gemini, LLMs in the Sorcero tuned model to produce higher quality content than is produced in state of the art by the best medical writing teams today. So that is how Sorcero is doing. We're personalizing HCP journeys, delivering faster evidence generation, generating insights into your products and more readable content that can transform your interaction with non-specialist providers, patients, and more, and speeding up the evidence generation across all of your global interactions and materials. And this allows you to drive global therapeutic launch excellence. The last thing is just a teaser. I'm going to hand this off to USDM in just a second. But we're announcing a joint solution between Sorcero, USDM, and Google. It's a framework to do responsible AI for deployment on this in the life sciences. We're very excited about this. This gives you a pathway because the biggest issue on this is trust. Can you deploy these LLMs in a trusted way on your internal data? Because that's where the insights are going to be generated and delivered. So I'm going to hand this over to our partner, John, who's going to share more about their services and this solution that we're delivering together. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Thanks, everybody. I know I'm standing between you and the drinks out there. So taking that in mind, I'll hold you hostage. USDM is a life sciences-centric company. I'm going to talk about AI assurance, but first let me tell you a little bit about us and why we're well positioned to address AI assurance. We've been in business for over 2 decades, and our DNA is quality and compliance. And you think going back with the old technology, moving forward to AI now, we need to do the same things from a compliance perspective. What needs to change is the tempo in which we're doing it, the rigor in which we apply existing tools and frameworks, and also the teamwork. And I'll talk about centers of trust a little later. But the people aspect are very important. We have over 900 global customers today, everyone from emerging to large companies, large corporations around the world. Of those companies, about 300 of them subscribe to our Cloud Assurance, which is a managed services offering where we help our clients implement a validated SaaS solution or a set of SaaS solutions and then keep them in a validated state. To do so requires continuous compliance. So that means anytime a release comes out, what has changed? We look at it, we perform the impact and risk assessment, we do the testing, anything that's new, develop the automated testing so that we can, on a continuous basis, do automated regression testing. I highlight this because this is central to the theme of AI assurance. It needs to be done, right? The first wave, if you will, was it was cloud first, getting everybody on the cloud. Now we've got all the GXP data and all other data is on the cloud. Now let's leverage the rich tools that Google has to offer around AI, right? So we're there. We've got the historical capabilities. We've got the tools. We have the knowledge. We know what people need to do. It's now herding everybody together and to work in an orchestrated manner and come up with a common level of understanding and perform responsible AI. All right, so that's a little bit of a pitch. From a technology perspective, we've got 40 technology partners, everyone from simple e-signature to very complex ERPs and virtual reality, augmented reality. Again, highlighting the fact that it doesn't matter what type of technology, it can be applied in life sciences. There were always hurdles. We dealt with large manufacturing and pharmaceutical companies. We're resistant because of their mentality, their framework, and how they did work in the past. We had to break that model. We still have to break models. It comes down to education. Education is key. So the final point is domain expertise. And this is critical. This goes to the theme of people in the loop. We have to rely on our domain experts. They're going to be the adjudicators of the AI. So it's not just regulatory, not just the compliant people. It's not just cybersecurity people. It's not the data management people. It's a collective, but you need the functional folks to look at the outcome and say, well, I think it's right, but prove it to me. How did you get there? Prove that algorithm to me. All right. So I borrowed, I didn't steal, I borrowed the top half of this slide from Google. Thank you, Google. And it's a bit dated, but what I did do is on the bottom, I emphasized the most recent AI-related regulations. And this is more or less a representation of the complexity that we're dealing with global regulations. It's a boatload of them. And it's changing at a tremendous tempo. And the velocity is not going to stop. Last year alone, there were over close to 60% increase in AI-related guidances, references. I hate to use the word regulations because far and few are actually telling us definitively what we need to do. And as a result, many companies are ostriches. They have their heads in the sand, and they're saying, I'm not going to do anything until the FDA tells me exactly what I need to do to validate this and how I'm going to validate it. That's the big hurdle. But is it stopping us? Absolutely not. It's a target-rich environment. There's too much to gain. We hear about all the successes from the business cases. We read about it. We cannot afford to wait. So what do? We move forward the best we can by interpreting the regulations as they exist, the frameworks, the guidances. We come up with best practices. We come up with guardrails. We depend on our experts, our team, to interpret. And that's really based on your tolerance for risk and what you're willing to go after and how fast. Won't spend too much time on this. We heard a lot about data. Data is the lifeblood of an AI. Everything that we've dealt with in the past, from pharma side, from the producer type data, all the way through. We heard a lot today around the patient data, electronic health records, device records. There's a fusion. It's all come together. And what does that mean? From a data strategy perspective, you're going to think a little harder about how we're going to deal with the data, right? And that's very important because it's a data-rich environment, but we have to control it. We have to make sure that we understand the data sources. We understand the data. We have to make sure we understand the regulations. And it's not just GXP or PV or clinical. It's cybersecurity. It's FedRAMP. It's all sorts of other regulations, GDPR, HIPAA. Some of them are light, some of them are very heavy. So I always emphasize the fact that security and compliance cannot be decoupled. They go hand in hand. We've made tremendous progress. Historically, we've done CSV, very paper intensive. Unfortunately, many companies are still there. They're spending too much time on paper, too much time on the old way of doing validation. They need to move forward with CSA, Computer System Assurance, which gives us the opportunity to leverage other companies' assets. That means if you're working with a a partner that's doing testing, leverage that testing. Why the hell would you want to do it over again? That's a waste. Take that opportunity and focus that energy, that time, that money into something that's more productive. Now, if you multiply that by the number of partners that you have in your ecosystem to do AI, that's a tremendous, tremendous opportunity. So one of the first waves we need to still push through is getting people into CSA and build on that trust, get critical thinking, looking at a risk-based approach. And on the top right, again, I shamelessly borrowed from National Institute of Standards and Technology, one of their reference models, which I think is very good because it shows us technical design, sociotech, and then also guiding principles across a number of AI-related guidances. The point here is we have to look for information around regulatory guidance. I look at what MITRE is doing. I look at what DARPA is doing. I look at what some of the academic institutions are doing. They're all using AI. They're exploring it. Life sciences is a very risk-averse business, but we're pushing the envelope, and we have to see how other industries, how other organizations, how other countries are applying AI. There's a lot to be learned there. And that type of insight and collaboration is extremely important. So if we think about the life sciences going through the various phases of moving something from preclinical to commercial, and we heard a lot of examples of the technology that's going to get us there faster. And here are some of the more traditional technologies in say, a farmer's landscape across the various non-regulated and regulated domain areas. It's a target-rich environment for AI. Tremendous opportunities. The only way we can address it, go after it, is through trust. Trusting our partners. That's why I call it circles of trust. We have to trust our vendors, we have to trust our cloud service providers, we have to trust our CROs, and the trust comes at a higher level than we have had in the past. It has to be more in lockstep, and the way we do that is by looking at a governance model. And here I'm illustrating a continuous monitoring control mechanism representing basically, if we think about a quality management system, companies are familiar with that. That's the backbone of how we stay compliant, right? FDA comes in, where do they go? The QMS. They want to see your policies, our work instructions. They want to see the evidence. How have people been trained? Do you have your house in order? Are you mature? Same thing with AI. It's just another technology, and we have to put an AI lens on our SOPs, on our work instructions, on the way we do validation, and have it within a governance framework so that our AI practitioners become responsible AI practitioners. Because remember, generative AI, we're now dealing with the user community has changed, right? It's no longer IT using a technology to generate a solution. It could be a person in HR, it could be a person in clinical, it could be a person in any of the functional areas that I identified earlier. And for them to be responsible AI practitioners, they have to have been trained, have access to not only the training and the SOPs and the work instructions, but also to the extended team of experts, the quality folks, the regulatory folks, the security folks. They have to have access to them as needed. The way we control the governance model is we trust, but we verify. We perform audits. That's not going away. What's changed here, the audits have an AI lens on them. Right? So if you think about, for those of you who have partners for many, many years, let's say it's an ERP or document management system, you perform every 1 or 3 years, you perform an audit for a preferred vendor, make sure they're mature, they're in control. When was the last time you looked at how they're using their AI? 90% of them do have AI now. You need to go back and take a look, or at least going forward, how are they using the AI to develop their system? And how is AI being pushed out as functionality to a customer, whether they know they have it and use it, or whether it's something they need to invoke, throw a toggle switch. In any case, the audits need to change. They need to be updated. And also there are a number of different types of certification that are worthwhile taking a look at. And we'll see more of that in the coming months and years around AI assurance. So I talked about the people, the process, the governance model. The technology layer, quite frankly, in my point of view, it's the easy part. The technology's there. We just need to get the people and the process, including the regulations, aligned in order to leverage what we have. We're not taking full advantage of the technology. Here I'm illustrating the foundational, in this case it's a Google landing zone that is GXP compliant and offers a continuous compliance capability. And built on that, we performed the typical things that still need to be performed. You see in the blue there, we need to do the validation and make sure that the platform is qualified and the vendors are assessed, as I had mentioned, and the infrastructure is verified, and we audit Google and do all those mean and nasty things that need to be done in order to ensure that the ecosystem, the trust, the circles of trust are there. Right? So then and only then can we really start tapping more of the technology that's available, but we can bring it into the environment, providing that AI system has that continuous monitoring, the continuous testing, and producing the evidence that will stand up to regulatory scrutiny. So I know nothing I've said here is rocket science, other than the people are the challenge, and we have to overcome that. So technology is available, and I'll tell you, it's a boatload of fun. AI is. I mean, I use it every day, and it's the possibilities are endless. So thank you very much. I'll be out there if you want to chat more about the philosophy of how to pummel people into compliance so that we get AI compliance. It's a good topic over a drink. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Richard. One more point. We have a white paper. You're free to scan that, the QR code. This is worthwhile reading that I think will be helpful for further conversations and insights. So are we doing the panel now? Is it Andrea?
So great. All right, great. Welcome to the panel portion.
Thank you.
Why don't we have Michael Parisi come up?
First
John? Yes, wherever you want to sit. Okay. John? Robert? I think everyone got to, both John and Robert were already up here today, but Michael did not get a chance to introduce himself. But why don't we start with you and give us an introduction?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me here. I'll say I'm the non-technical person in this super exciting conference. I'm on the downside, downstream communications. I spent my career working with life science groups, analyzing assets, prioritizing assets, developing communication plans that include multi-stakeholder. And I have a second job as a patient advocate. I've been an advocate for 25 plus years. Currently serve as the board president of a cancer charity, Cancer Care, that has financial assistance, but also has a copay assistance. So I was very interested to hear about the pains of prior auth, because we often deal with patients way downstream after they've been through multiple rejections. And if they find us, and lucky enough to find us, hopefully we can help. And there's also tons of data that surrounds those organizations that most people don't think about in the AI world, but there's plenty of insights that sit in those groups. So thrilled to be here and share my insights. Thank you.
Great. I keep saying you're going to be the person who helps us keep it real, right?
Keep it real.
As we're talking through this. Okay, well, let's start with you. I'm going to sit down here. So you're with a lot of customers. You see the issues from a patient perspective. What are you seeing from a life science perspective? What are the scenarios that are ripe for GenAI or that people are actually, have the appetite to take on right now?
Yeah, so, and we deal with a full range of startup biotech, first to commercial, pre-commercial, all the way to top 5 pharma. There's not a conversation I don't have each day where AI is first, second, or third comment. And I would say the enthusiasm, I've never seen something enter the dialogue so quickly. It doesn't matter if I'm talking to medical affairs, R&D, or even commercial. And the use cases are all over the place. And I would also say the punchline is often, how much can this save me? And I'm thinking, gosh, that's the wrong equation. Richard and others, and John talked about the importance of governance, the power of the insights and integrating disparate, structured, unstructured data that we've never had access to. That to me is super exciting. And there are starting to be an appreciation for it. But I do have to say the leading conversation, unfortunately, starts with how much will this save? And I answer, I'm not sure it's going to save anything. Let's kind of flip the script a bit and talk about what it can do, how we can get the most out of it, and then we could talk about efficiencies.
That's great. Good. And then maybe we could go down the row here and talk about what are you seeing as some barriers? So first, that's a great one, just the mindset, but what are you seeing?
That's a great question, Andrea. So one of the big issues we're seeing is there's incredible interest. Life sciences, I think, has 3 challenges and barriers that I've particularly identified. One, I'll leave a little bit to John, which is the fact that it is a heavily regulated market. The regulators pay a lot of attention.
Thank you.
They're global companies. It's not just American regulations. If you're truly doing this globally, you have to comply with all the European regulations. You have to comply with the US. You have to comply with Japan. That's huge, and you'll speak to more of that. The other 2 things I'm seeing, though, is one, life science is incredibly advanced in their areas of science, right? We saw some of the FormBio work. You saw some early R&D. Life science is behind the adoption curve in a lot of the analytics and workflows outside of R&D. It's still very manual, and that's because they've had totally unique data challenges, which is, e-commerce. You have systems out there that can do predictives and analytics, track your consumers, track your workflow. You could do incredible things with that. That has not yet been able to be achievable in life sciences, partly because the data is more regulated, personal health, all that information. But the other issue is the content itself was highly scientific and designed for clinicians and researchers, which means it's in research papers. It's in 1,900-page clinical study reports that come out. It's in the unstructured data, and only people with huge amounts of education, training, experience can even understand what is written. Until today, with generative AI, has completely changed that game. So they have been behind that transformation journey. And I'll just say this a little bit. The people who are MD, PhDs, God bless you, but you spend so long in school, sometimes it's like you want me to learn another thing, AI, on top of already, and many of these people who are in commercial also have an MBA, it is a lot. They need it to be intuitive. They need it to be easy. And a lot of these systems, they just say, hey, I'm going to hand it to my data science team, who might not really understand the use case. They might not really understand the business case. And they need a way as business users to intersect with AI. Generative has given an opening with the chat interface, but they need it for all of the things that need to be transformed. Insights, analytics, evidence generation, personalization. And that's where Sorcero is very focused.
Yeah, I agree. Because we deal with emerging all the way to very large companies, I see different types of barriers. The smaller, the newer companies, they're not necessarily comfortable with or understand how to test, how to discover AI. So the idea of putting a tiger team together and quickly going through a structured methodology with a use case, the right use case, that will allow them to learn and then parlay that into more AI internal business or opportunity is one of the major things that we're helping companies with. That's fairly simple. On the other end of the spectrum, we're dealing with a lot of companies that are asking the question around data. Can I take regulated data and non-regulated data and put them into the same, data store or data lake? And what does this mean? And what if I'm dealing with Germany and various regulations around data location and security? So which is good. I mean, it's a good barrier because people are thinking about it, but the time to resolve, to answer, lengthens I'll call it a sales cycle, time to realize actual AI solutions. It's taking much longer. People are still risk adverse. They have to do due diligence, but we're not really, I don't see people operating at the tempo that they should be.
I really like that advice around the use case. I've seen that many times, right? People want to go in and jump in. It's like, come up with a valuable use case, and then we can work backwards from there. That's great advice. What about you, Michael, as far as barriers? Anything else you want to add?
Well, same, and I think the way organizations have functioned, large or small, everyone has ownership of their domain. And we're talking about disrupting that a bit. Who owns the insights? Where do they get applied? From the patient side, the easy translation, plain language summary to me is bare minimum. But are those insights getting fed back into R&D so we could develop better trials that are more relevant to the lived experience of the individual with a condition or on a therapy? That feedback loop doesn't necessarily exist today, and it's certainly not standard.
Yeah, I was saying earlier, from a pharma perspective, almost operates like different companies a lot of times in siloed. So you're breaking down those silos. You have to really focus on the business side of it. But I think culturally there's a change, right? The innovation pace is fast, and I don't think anyone would use the word fast to describe pharma. So how do you balance that? And when we started talking about this, the dichotomy that we're literally focused today 100% on compliance for this industry and innovation, like they're not two words that we've seen together, all the time. So I feel like there was great examples today of all of that. I'm going to ask this one to Richard. So Richard, you're seeing from your perspective, life science organizations that are looking at it from an enterprise-wide AI, as well as consumer, like they have the reality around what consumer is. How are you wrestling with that? What's the difference between them? And what are you seeing?
I think it's a great question. I think, as you said, a lot of life sciences companies literally are a bunch of companies in it. Whether it's in agency side where it's a house of brands, whether it's in life sciences where you've acquired a company and it's still operating 6 years later with some things. It's pretty common. They're big companies that often get purchased and smaller ones. I would say this. Life sciences has set up probably one of the most fractal procurement environments of any industry, right? So it's not just by geography, it's not just by team function, it's also by therapeutic area. It's also by maybe individual brand or therapeutic within that area. You might have a product that's purchased to support insights on an oncology asset. Your other oncology assets don't have it. You then have your affiliates on global launch. And what this has meant is that global launch has been this stuttering, difficult to manage process where you'll file your reports from your 34 affiliates around the country into regional pools. The regional pools will manually review them. They'll compile them into a report. 6 to 9 months later, you get a distillation of what happened in Finland or what happened in Australia or why maybe you're not getting adoption in a different place. The challenge is right now, the global launch excellence and that global customer intelligence was never deliverable. The data sets weren't analogous. There was too much compliance challenges. It was divided by drug and brand. It was too hard to do because it was a process and a work stream by a services vendor, typically not a platform. That's what Sorcero was solving, and we have partners who are doing true global launch excellence, where you can literally pipe in the raw data from all the way down at the country level, across all your omni-channel engagement, all the way towards global, but there's fidelity on that data. There's source attribution. You can query it. It can use it to inform via RAG your answers. It could do those things, but you can get real-time insight. And the thing that is changing, I think, so much is how the treatment landscape has changed. You know, in areas, the majority of oncology is now off-label. In breast cancer, it's over 75%. We're seeing 63% in neuro, I think now. That means that you cannot proactively engage in commercial on and off-label use, which means if you're working on a marketing and commercial model of pushing out a message, you have already failed. You cannot do it. If you're in breast cancer, 75% of your scripts and treatment decisions cannot and will not take into account anything you can proactively or promotionally put into the field, even if it's a medical thing. The only way to do this is be responsive to the needs. When it's unsolicited, you can respond to those questions anywhere. But to be able to be fast and not take 3 weeks to respond to a single inquiry with a standard response, which is the current state of play in pharma, you're going to need to adopt these AI and have that data and alignment across all these teams. And we're seeing that is a big shift, but everyone in commercial, everyone in medical, that is what they're talking about.
Great, great. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think to build in agility would be amazing. So to Richard's point, and I'd like to use MedInfo as an example because this has always been an inbound request. And their data was compiled, letters would go out, responses would go out. But did we drill into zip codes? Did we see, is there a same issue in a zip code that maybe needs an intervention with a physician? Maybe they're misprescribing or misunderstanding. And if we could build agility into the response, but also think about things that were a linear process and a check the box that you had to do as an insight engine, it kind of flips some of the functions into a much more valuable one inside. It will require change in governance, it'll require workflow and training, but it could be really powerful and building more agility into how we respond.
Great, great, I like that. John, your team worked closely with Sorcero to build the white paper, Responsible AI in Life Sciences. Why don't you talk about some of the lessons and things that are published in there and give us a little preview?
Okay. Working with Richard was a lot of fun. No, in all seriousness, it was. The collaboration was interesting because what we're able to do is align the technology, the business need, the technology with, from my point of view, the regulatory and the governance aspect, and looking at what the main lesson learned, what is at the heart of this is, and I'll use a term that is not used in the white paper, it's compliance first, right? We did cloud first, we hear about AI first, now it's compliance first. which is an old term because there are no new ideas. It all goes around.
That's right.
So it's AI compliance first, meaning that we need to continually monitor and test, monitor, test, monitor. And that's really at the heart of what we talk about in the white paper. There are the different facets that are involved in validation, and we're familiar with that. But having a data-centric and from ingestion of the information, making sure there's data integrity, there is data security, that the algorithm and the test data set is in order and that people have eyes on it. There's person in the loop, human in the loop, and that the functional experts get eyes on the results. Because at the end of the day, it's prove it to me. I mean, going back years, I worked with pharmacovigilance organizations because if I had a new technology and it was something that would work within PV, I would go to PV first because I always viewed them as the most difficult organization and function to win over.
Yeah.
Because you've got the hardcore MDs and the PhDs, and a black box operation is no way. Open up, show me how it works, and if you can overcome the objections and win over through transparency of how the system works, how the algorithm works with the drug safety organization, you're golden. So I think I went a little bit off topic.
No, you're fine. And I think everyone that you can actually download is this link here. You can download the white paper and take a read yourself.
Can I maybe say one finding from this I think was really interesting is I want to say something maybe it's like a tiny bit inflammatory, but
you didn't like working with me?
That's good for the panel.
On the white paper?
Oh, you're great. The foundation model companies that have been talking a lot about foundational models have talked up a lot the existential risk of AI because it makes for immediate press, it makes you relevant, it makes it exciting, right? What this means is there's been a lot of knee-jerk response to AI regulatorily around the world. And I saw a quote, I have to remember, where someone said, the risk of you dying in the robot revolution is a lot less than the risk that you might not get a life-saving treatment in healthcare because we may have regulated or slowed down where AI could make its greatest contribution. And I think for those in this room, Google has been the leader in responsible AI. I don't think has engaged in that rhetoric. Second, the realization is that this is where we kind of have to be the responsible AI leaders because the people that need this most are patients. And this is where AI maybe has the most potential opportunity for positive benefit in the world. But if we let ourselves get regulations, we're not at the table, we're not proactive, we don't have industry solutions on a vision for responsible AI, the regulations will happen to us. And often in life sciences, we've waited for the FDA to kind of tell you what to do. In this case, I think we need to engage because there's a lot of fear-mongering that's actually can stop transformative uses of AI that could speed up life-saving treatments, better adoption, precision medicine, personalization, patient accessibility, some of the longest held benefits that we've wanted in the healthcare and life sciences sector for decades are at our fingertips, and we need to not let that get blocked.
I agree. Got to get in the driver's seat. And I feel like events like today and just sharing everything that we're doing and the lessons we're learning along the way help people. And we can't use compliance as an excuse. We have to, it's an enabler, obviously, with the amount of experience people have. We're thinking about those things. So, good. I'm going to go through this one and give you a few minutes, and I'll start with Michael here. So what advice would you give to organizations as they evolve their AI journey?
A couple things jump out. I think John touched on them. Trust and transparency, I think, are at the core. And being very clear, if you have a use case in mind that you want to bring forward, is clarify with your regulatory and every stakeholder along the way, what are you trying to achieve? And that's not always obvious. It sounds like an obvious first step,
Right.
but it's not always clear, and it may evolve as you actually get into the project. Have an open hood policy, let them look under the hood, let them learn with you, and really be transparent across the way. Set up a task force. We do this with our clients, communicate, over-communicate. You have to reduce that fear and build that trust along the way. Because there's going to be missteps internally. I can guarantee you'll always get a phone call saying, someone somewhere else in the organization said, we can't do this.
Right.
Right? You've heard it a million times. We can't do this. And if we truly believe this will accelerate and optimize the adoption of new therapies, we have to get past that. But you can't do it by trying to be too technical. We have to realize, too, the degrees of tech folks in an organization is tremendously varied. People are excited and they're terrified at the same time. Bring them along the journey with you.
So very heavy on the education, right?
Exactly.
For the first time in a long time, you do need, from a business perspective, to be able to talk about this technology and understand foundations that other technologies you did not. So it's a new skill set that everyone has to pick up.
Yep.
What do you think, John?
Education is first and foremost. That's central. I talked about the circles of trust. The folks in the extended ecosystem of partners need to trust one another left and right, and that comes through education and evidence that there's an understanding and that the central organization, the company themselves, that the team, I'll call it the team working on AI, whether you're security or data or regulatory or IT, you have to have a common lexicon. There has to be an understanding of what is being done, why it's being done, how it's being done, everything from the risk framework that's being used and why. It has to be the data management strategy and why. Everybody's discipline needs to be overlaid one another. They don't need to become experts, but they need to understand. They can no longer have tunnel vision. They need to understand the other person's perspective. So when someone says, you can't do this, it's like, why? Why can't you do it? So we don't want to hinder innovation. So no idea should immediately be dismissed. Maybe we can't do it for whatever reason now, but 3 months from now, look at the tempo in which we're rolling out technology and data is becoming available. It's incredible. 3 months later, it may be an opportunity, and that's where I believe the governance model has to also be the custodian of innovation, the ideas, and the outcomes, the results of the successes and failures, and communicate it throughout the company so that education continues.
Great. Richard, love to hear your thoughts.
I would say that that's super important, but I think there's one important tenet we have to remember, which is we cannot accept the zero state, the default state in a lot of these environments, because the reality we have to accept is that a lot of challenges today in life sciences and healthcare are not acceptable. Okay? The fact that some of our other panelists, and presenters showed that 60% of prior auth not advancing, that's a broken healthcare system, right? When we are talking about the fact that 99.6% of patients don't have or understand the science behind the treatments that they are taking to treat their condition, and often there is a breakdown in communication with their doctor, and they're not agents in their healthcare journey, that's a fail state. And so there's a lot of fail states here that we have to actually recognize. And so the thing I love about life sciences is people are scientists. And in other industries, some people have a competitive advantage and they'll just hoard it and they will not share it. I've worked in energy. That is the case. And finance, that's really the case.
Oh, yeah.
But in this industry, people publish. So when we co-published our PLS research, it was with UCB. It was with the patient work on Humanity. And we're sharing that there's a new way of doing things, and that is to the world. There's a new mechanism. And the data is so compelling that if you don't use this method, you're basically failing patients. Is also the other thing is that the zero state should be made unacceptable when you have validated scientific evidence, because this is the same principle in life sciences. When you release a new drug and you have higher patient survival, higher quality of life, you change the standard of care. Because it's not acceptable once that data is validated to just keep prescribing the old medication. That is actually malpractice in a lot of cases. And I think the thing you have to realize is that in these processes, in these systems, yes, we have to educate. We have to co-publish. We have a responsibility to advance the field in where AI can make things better. But we also should not accept the zero state. The standard of care in operational efficiency, in how we respond to physicians, respond to patients, so do this, is not acceptable today.
Great. Thank you. That's great insight. I think we only have a few minutes left, so I like our panelists to just kind of sum up. If I am sitting in my seat at a pharmaceutical company, right, and I'm like, hey, I listen to this, I'm going to give it a chance. What's the first few things they should do? How do they get started? I'd love to hear each of you give a quick summary. How do you get started?
Well, there's so many great examples that were shown today. I avoid the boil the ocean, so I try and look for, I don't want to say easy wins, none of them are easy, but simple application that can move the needle, plain language summaries to, and I don't like the term plain language as a patient advocate. It has to be appropriate. Gene therapy to a very educated person is not plain language. It's still very complicated. So as science gets more complex, translating that and bringing the patient communities in real time, and that could be a protocol design that you could summarize and push out to help encourage trial enrollment. Include the patient as early and as often as possible. PLS technology is a great example of how we could do that quickly. No publication should come out without a parallel PLS at the same time. Great. They deserve that information at the same time.
Great. John? 1 minute each.
Yeah, I'll use the term, have the right use case, the target opportunity that is understood by the collective who will be working on that prospective AI solution, and play devil's advocate. I mean, I hate to keep going back and being the regulatory guy, but bring a compliance person in to get early visibility into how things are different than what they're doing today. And if they were asked to put together a validation plan and a summary report, could they do it, given the way they do business today? Are they using CSA? So I think involving people early on to expose them and communicating them with them and the others is extremely powerful in the onset.
Great.
Not dragging them along at the 11th hour.
Right. Get their buy-in. Richard.
Yep. I would say that, and we have some of the GenAI selection teams from some of the leading pharma companies in the audience here who are doing this work. Not everyone can afford to do that. If you're, maybe top 100, but maybe not top 30 pharma, you probably need a commercial off-the-shelf and turnkey solution that someone else has validated to do this. You probably can't do all that build in-house. I do think that one of pharma's biggest challenges is the emphasis on building themselves. AI is different than analytics. It's different than the traditional software. You really need people that have thought through these challenges at multiple levels. It doesn't mean that you don't build, but you should build on an AI platform with AI capabilities. What Google has built with Vertex, what Sorcero has done on top of those technologies to build a compliant solution that takes so much headaches out of it. Build on, not build, don't buy versus build is my recommendation here. You build on a platform for this. That just solves so many challenges. And the more people that pool it, you have a more compliant solution, a more functional solution, a better solution. And the last part is don't find the use cases that are marginal, right? Over here that are different. You do have to look at some of the things that can do core business transformation because they are going to have the value to sustain a continued investment in this space. The benefits are huge. They are far beyond immediate dollars and cents financial. They are meeting some of the unmet promises to patients and physicians that this industry has been promising for a long time. Those can be met, and those can be much more transformative than a little saving on a business process here and there.
Oh, that's great feedback. We all have family and friends and people we love, and we'd love to see this technology make those type of changes. Thank you all for your insights today. We're going to continue. We do not want to be what's in between you and a glass of wine or something to drink. So let's continue the conversation and network out in the hall here. And I want to thank our panelists, Michael, John, Richard. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Guru.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.